Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to Know Your Gear QA number 193. That's a lot of episodes. Closing up on that 200 episode, which I'm excited about. So as always, if you're new to the show, if you're talking to me, put a question mark first. That way I know you're talking to me or asking me a question. If I see it, I'll try and answer it. Also, if you're watching the rebroadcast, I take the time to timestamp all the things we discussed in these podcasts, these live shows. And of course, if you're listening to it live, thank you for joining me on Spotify and iHeartRadio and of course iTunes and all that stuff. Thank you guys so much for that as well. All the ways you guys support the channel and the podcast is awesome, and I appreciate that. This week's a crazy week, but we're gonna have fun. This episode is rooted in fun, and because this week has been just a crappy week as always with all this COVID and everything going on. So we're gonna have some fun today, and we're gonna talk about some of the stuff that's in our industry and exciting, and of course I'll probably get in trouble if I don't talk about Mesa Boogie and Gibson. So we'll hit that first, and more importantly, I want to tell you I'm wearing my Mesa Boogie shirt today because I thought, like I said, let's have some fun. And no matter what I say after that statement, I'm sure I'm going to upset some people. I saw the internet was exploding. My favorite thing this week was it was one of the three things was blowing up my phone this week. And so this one was Gibson buys Mesa Boogie. And of course, there's already been a ton of channels talking about it. And of course, we're going to talk about it. First, I'm going to give just again some, I don't have any inside information or information about anything. So I'm just going to talk about my initial reaction to it. So my first thought was, did Mesa Boogie, was Randall getting in retirement years? Is that what this is all about? And I read the article. There's an article on Guitar World with the guys from Gibson and guys from Mesa Boogie talking about this purchase and what kind of happened. And it was really interesting. It basically came down to they were talking, people at Gibson were talking to people at Mesa Boogie, just keep it that way so I don't have to get into the names, about doing some limited edition Gibson amps because they were big fans of Mesa Boogie, of course, because Mesa Boogie is notoriously known for being the first boutique amp company. I mean, that's really what they are. That's what they were to me, the first boutique amp company. And the thing I've always loved about Mesa Boogie is they hold strong to their beliefs. They make their products in California. They've never made an import version of their products. In fact, their vintage 30s, even though almost all the vintage 30s you get in Marshalls now and all the vintage 30s you can buy aftermarket are made in China, if you buy your vintage 30 from the Mesa Boogie website, it's the same price as any other vintage 30, but it's actually made in England. And it's because that's what they want. They put made in England speakers in their amps. So again, just kind of getting to the heart of what Mesa Boogie is. It's a company that believes in quality. Some people love their amps, some people hate their amps, but regardless of that, no one ever really faults the integrity of their quality, right? So anyway, so back to this thing. What does this mean? Well, like I said, I read the article. Basically, it said that they were talking about making a limited line of Gibson amps, and then that turns into, I guess, hey, why don't we buy Mesa Boogie? And if you guys don't know, I interviewed Mike Soldano last year, and that's on my Phil McKnight channel too, that video. And he sold Soldano amps for, I don't want to say the number, but let's just say insanely cheap, and not because he wanted to. I'm sure he didn't want to. The number, when he told me how much the company sold for, I think my heart stopped physically. It stopped. I was just in shock. It was an amount that maybe you, well, not me and maybe 4 or 5 of you, if we got together, we could come up with the funds to do that probably. So I was in shock, and he was basically saying that, hey, he's getting older. He's working 80 hours a week, when the 2 o'clock in the morning when an employee leaves the door unlocked, the alarm goes off. He's not saying this. I'm just giving you examples. He's got to get up and go down there and, meet the police and the alarm company. I'm giving you an analogy. So, taking a step back and being able to design Soldano amps and letting his legacy continue on is important to him. I don't know if that's the story with Randall and Mesa Boogie amps, Randall, the owner. But I think it's, oh, my mic's a tad low. Hold on a second. Is that better? Let's see if that's better. I thought it was hot last week, so I just turned it down a little bit. Is that better? Let me see if that's better. Is that better? Anyone? Let me know if that's better. I'm just going to wait a second because, this is how we do around here. Yeah, it's like, okay, thank you. So anyways, what's interesting is I think this is going to help Mesa Boogie continue on the legacy. You got to understand, I watched a ton. I watched a ton of people talk about Mesa Boogie and the Gibson buyout, and a lot of it was negative. A lot. Because I'm sure a lot of people are very, very... they're in love with their Mesa Boogie amps, right? I love my Mesa Boogie amp, and they don't want to see it go down the hill, and they don't want to see it get ruined. But you got to understand, I really believe if things like this don't happen, these companies aren't going to last anyways. You know what I mean? These guys can't live forever, and if there's no one to hand off the company to, we're going to see more and more of this stuff. And this is what I'm saying is, there's so much of this going on now in the industry in the last 10 years. You know what I mean? Where these companies are being sold to other companies, bigger companies. And the problem is you got to understand, in scope or scale, you have to understand that Mesa Boogie may not be a huge company. It's not a massive behemoth, but it's definitely worth a lot more than companies like Schecter could probably pay for it. Or, obviously John Sir Guitars could not pay for it. I don't think they they gross earn as much as Mesa Boogie does. So, there's not a whole lot of buyers in the market. I don't know what Mesa Boogie's worth. I Googled it to see, and it said between $10 and $100 million. I couldn't tell you if I was going to throw just a general guess. In the $30 million range is what I think it's worth. Who knows? Again, this is so speculative, and I don't even have anything to really base that off of, just kind of like a judging where I know what companies are worth what. You know what I mean? I'm going off sales, right? So I'm saying $30 million in sales. Who knows, right? Probably not close. But here's my problem. My problem is who could buy that? And definitely who wouldn't buy it? Fender would never buy Mesa Boogie. They have amps, and they, of course, have EVH to distribute. Marshall wouldn't want to buy it. So it would definitely be a guitar company. So I think Mesa Boogie selling itself to Gibson was a smart move for Mesa Boogie. Why? Because if it was going to sell itself, there was no one else to buy it. That's my thought. Now, here's the big question. This is where the anger and the hostility comes from when I watched that side of it. It was, what is Gibson going to do with this company? And of course, you're very logical to think that. We already know what happens. We've seen Fender buy brands like SWR and shelve that brand. They shelved Sun. That brand's gone. We've seen companies shelve all kinds of brands, right? And so it's possible that they buy Mesa Boogie and it goes on for a year or two and then they ditch it, right? That's possible. Ovation was sold this week, by the way, to another company. And there was another amp company. Was it Ashdown or somebody? Somebody else was just sold again. So all that happened this week, by the way. So anyways, yeah, I understand. It's a little concerning to see what Gibson might do with the brand. Obviously, they seem excited about the brand now, but, is it a new toy for them? What will happen in the long term is the question. What I will tell you is the logic, I think, that makes sense here. Gibson, in my opinion, if you go to Guitar Center and you look at the expensive guitars in the Guitar Centers, you're going to definitely see Fenders, PRSs, and Gibsons. You don't see any Sirs at the Guitar Centers or the main, right? There's no Sirs at Sweetwater. You see mostly those three brands sticking out the most. And if you think about it, Fender, of course, they got high-end guitars, and of course, they're import guitars. They have acoustic lines that are very successful. They have amplifiers, of course, is super successful. And then you have PRS, and Paul Reed Smith has, of course, his high-end line, his import line is successful. His acoustic line, again, is very successful in comparison to his other his other brands or other product lines. And then he's even got an amp line that does okay. It's not a great amp line. It's not hugely diverse, and it's not flying off the shelves, but it's a good amp line, and people own it. I own two Paul Reed Smith amps. So I think Gibson's looking at this smart, saying, hey, we don't have an amp line. And what that means to them is every time they sell a guitar, they're missing an opportunity to sell an amp with that. That's just the reality of it. I own a Fender amp and a Fender guitar, right? And if you look at it, look at the iconic Gibson artists. Most of those artists play Marshalls. So by definition, Gibson's promoting Marshall every time they sell guitars because somebody's going to need an amp. So I think it's just smart to say we need an amp. Somebody says, yeah, Wanna Beetle said it was Ashdown. It's still owned by Mark Gaudet, but Korg was distributing it and just basically bought it. So yeah, and so that's what happened with Ovation. The distributor in Europe bought Ovation. So that's what happened to Ovation. So again, I think I understand why people are upset that, Gibson bought Mesa Boogie. And I understand why some people rejoice because, some people love Gibson and they think they're going to do a good job. I, of course, I want to point out, I didn't want to predict this, but I did. Last year when we talked about was it last year? They're starting to run together. When Gibson filed bankruptcy, and I did a live show, so you can go back to it. All my live shows are archived. I said what I expected to happen with Gibson's bankruptcy was it would discharge, they would shut off the debt, and like all companies that have a bankruptcy like that and come back, they're going to be financially stronger and they're going to buy up brands. That's what Gibson's doing. They're doing what is the right business move. And again, we're not talking about what we want as musicians. We're talking about, or at least I'm focusing right now on the business move. They basically filed bankruptcy, shut off the debt. They came back stronger, and they're growing. And so basically, Stuart said, okay, hold on. We'll get to the Ashdown Aguilar thing in a minute. So anyways, they're saying that basically, sorry, you guys are kind of chatting so much, I kind of caught my eye for a second. Basically, what we're getting at is that it makes sense that Gibson would buy an AM company. And it makes sense that Gibson bought Mesa Boogie. And I also make sense why some people are not happy about that. All those things make sense to me. Me? I don't know. I do know this. The question I heard on one of the channels, I don't remember which one because I watched like 5 different channels talk about this week, was... what's going to be worth more money, the pre-Gibson or the post-Gibson Mesa Boogies? It would be interesting to see. And this title, I put the new Mesa Goobies, right? Goobies, because I was just being kind of trying to be lighthearted here. But like I said, I'm excited to see things like this happen. This is good signs for the industry to see that brands like this are being bought and valued instead of shutting down. I mean, let's be clear. Let's be very clear. As you guys know, I'm obviously a huge collector and lover of guitars and amps. Amps they're tough right now. It's a tough market to be in, Before the announcement of Mesa Boogie selling to Gibson, literally, I don't know if it was like hours before, but it was just hours before that, I was talking to a friend who makes boutique amps, and we were just talking about the fact the future of amps is so scary because there's plug-in software, there's Helix, there's Axe-Fx. We already know all the players in the game. There's so much stuff in play now. It's so scary to see the fact that it's a scary world. And post-COVID, it's going to even be crazier because artists are going to be touring again, and they're going to definitely be on a budget. You're going to see that. And so hauling a huge Mesa Boogie amp was probably not in a lot of artists' future coming up. So maybe with Gibson's power behind it, that can be a future. Maybe they can figure out how to do that. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting. Will be really, 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 really interesting to see what happens with this. So that was one of the things that blew up this week. And that's my opinion is I think it's, I don't know if I think it's good or bad. I want to see what happens, but I think it's a good sign for the industry to see that companies, instead of closing, are just being bought and carried over to other companies. Like I said, I'm not saying I'm excited about Gibson buying Mesa Boogie. I'm saying that if I was given the option to Mesa Boogie go out of business or some bigger company buy them and try to keep it going, it's good. And I'm not saying Mesa Boogie was in dire straits. What I'm saying is those are the two options I see for companies a lot of times is they either close or they get sold. So what happened next? Okay, so like I said, there was 3 emails this week that were just blowing up my phones. The next one was also on the thumbnail. So apparently, a couple friends asked me if I seen it. It was Guitar Center, and then a couple people sent me emails asking me if it was me. So Guitar Center is running an ad right now, and it's Sharpen Your Own Axe. That's their ad campaign telling people they can go and fix up their own guitars. So the reason why that's relevant to me is because I had done some clinics and stuff at Sam Ash's where you brought guitars, and I've done stuff to them. So the question everybody was asking me was, am I doing that for Guitar Center? No. Guitar Center, and I've told you this before, Guitar Center is a little slow to the internet game yet. You know what I mean? They don't really, they're still, that's why I call them, it's like your grandpa's store. You know what I mean? I hate to say it. It's this horrible thing to say out loud, but it's true. Guitar Center is just not savvy with what we're doing yet. And I think this is cool. I think the whole internet, YouTuber community thing is really cool with guitar stuff, but I don't see them really dying. I've told you this before. I've talked to the marketing people. Actually, back up. More importantly, so I'm saying it correctly. Guitar Center's marketing people have approached me years ago saying they want to get into working with YouTubers and getting the brand out there and talking and stuff. And they said they want to do that in the next couple of years. That's right. I'll never forget that conversation. They're like, yeah, this sounds fun. We want to do this in the next couple of years. So anyway, so they run in this ad. So to be clear, this is what's important. So the Know Your Gear thing, I just want, so because that was, somebody was asking me, am I involved with Guitar Center? I am not. I've never talked to them. They don't talk to me. And like I said, they would have no interest anyways because they don't seem to. Think about this. I couldn't get Guitar Center to allow me. If you guys know, I did a video where I went into a Sam Ash store and I bought a guitar for $500 with my own money. And that video's got like 1.5 million views. I asked Guitar Center if they would let me film a video where I go in and buy a $200 guitar, and Guitar Center would not allow it. They said no. They don't allow filming in their stores, even though there's 1,000 videos of people filming in their stores. So, and so, you know, just to keep grinding this on. So just what's important, because I want to really hit this so you guys understand what the scope of this. When Marty Schwartz and I did a video called, buying a beginner's guitar on Marty Schwartz's channel, his 2 million subscriber channel, Marty Schwartz's management approached Guitar Center and asked if Marty Schwartz and Phil McKnight, and of course they were leaning on Marty Schwartz's power with his 2 million subs, but still I had 200,000, you know what I mean? It wasn't, was it not chopped liver? If we could film in the Guitar Center, and they said, no, they don't, they don't allow people filming in their stores. And I mean, even if we went in early or anything like that, it wasn't allowed. So we didn't do the video there. So the point is, no, they're not working with me with the Sharpen My Axe program. They haven't approached me. They're just using the term. And here's the important part of what I was going to say. The other emails are getting were like, hey man, you need to sue Guitar Center for saying sharpen your axe or whatever. First of all, so you understand how trademarks work, they're not even saying sharpen my axe. They're saying sharpen your own axe, which technically is slightly different, but that's not the important part. I don't trademark or own Sharpen My Axe. I trademark and own Know Your Gear. And I've told you this before, I own the trademark not for any other reason, so that I don't have any problems printing shirts and putting the logo everywhere. Know Your Gear, because it's mine. Sharpen My Axe was given to me by a viewer. One of you said, hey, why don't we call your repair series Sharpen My Axe? And I started doing that. So it's not mine to own. That's how I feel. It's ours. It's a community. We did it and we use it. And if Guitar Center, hey, they could have just came up with the idea on their own. That happens. That happens all the time. That we can't be so silly to think Guitar Center has seen me and even knows what this channel is about. But it's also possible they did see it and they thought, hey, that was kind of cool, and let's use it. So, and like I said, that is actually more flattering, by the way. Them not knowing it, that we use it here on the channel and they use it is, as a coincidence, is not exciting for me. But the idea that maybe they saw, because I do have like 60 videos all titled with Sharpen My Axe. So, I mean, it's millions of views on there. You know what I mean? So it's out there. If they saw it, thought it was cool and used it, that's actually exciting. Here's why. It's exciting because whenever a big company like that actually sees a trend and tries to copy it, that means we're doing something right here. That's what it means. Right? So you guys are cracking me up. Sharpen my dolphin. Thank you, Mike, for the joke. I don't know what it means, but it's funny as hell. So give your axe the edge. Yeah. So again, my only thing was it was literally blowing up my phones, because I guess they launched as an email campaign, or they put it on their website. I'm not sure what they did, but man, you all got it at the same time. The other thing that came up, and then we'll get to some questions, because I have pinned questions from before we started the show today for early viewers, and of course some super chats and stuff. Before we get the next thing was, of course, everybody was talking about Reverb and Reverb shutting down websites, not site. And again, this has been talked about this week, but why I want to talk about it is basically what's happening is in 2017, Reverb was building and facilitating separate websites for vendors. In other words, if you were a music store or if you were a manufacturer of products like the Pedal Pal guys, right, are one of those, they would let you build a website. You'd have a website with your own cart to give it a more professional look, is what they were doing. Now, one of the things, if you're one of my patrons, you know this because I shared it with the patrons a long time ago. I let everybody know that if you ever buy off Reverb, and they have their own personal site, you can go to the Reverb site, the personal site, and in most cases, I can't say every case, but 80 to 90% of the time, they didn't charge you sales tax, so you didn't have to pay sales tax. And the reason that was done, And it has nothing to do with why Reverb shutting down those sites, by the way. The reason why that was that way was I reached out to Reverb, so you know. I reached out to Reverb because I don't do anything without asking first. I said, hey, I noticed that when I go to, like, let's say you go to Brand X store on Reverb and it's charging me their sales tax, but when I go and click their shop, their personal, you know, Reverb website, it doesn't charge me sales tax anymore. Why is there no sales tax? And he said, the representative from Reverb told me it's because when you're on their personal Reverb site, they have to collect the sales tax. So they have to actually switch it to collect sales tax. And based on some of the laws and some of the places where they're not collecting sales tax. But that's on them. So the reason I tell you that is because it's not the reason why Reverb's shutting down those individual sites. In other words, it's not a sales tax issue because Reverb's not responsible for them anyways, because those personal parties would have to collect their sales tax. So you guys have seen it. Some companies actually flat out said, hey, if you buy it off our Reverb website, our shop site, there's no sales tax collected. There was all kinds of ads like that, a lot of companies, because a lot of places, again, it depends on your state and the laws, they could get away with not charging the sales tax. So why did Reverb shut that down? Well, Reverb's official statement was because even though they put it in place, there's other entities like Shopify that are much better, and you know, we don't need to do this anymore. I personally think that could be possibly partially true. Okay. What I really feel like is happening is Reverb is doing really great. As we know, they're killing it. They had a record year last year. Of course, you know, right? They're becoming the number one spot to buy used gear and gear, period, on the internet. And those websites are just added costs for them. I don't think there's a benefit to Reverb to housing that thing. I think that was, I told you this before Etsy bought Reverb. Reverb was all about growth. How do we get everyone to come to this platform? And the reason why I know that Reverb started those websites in 2017 was because in 2017, we still had the store shop. And in 2017, they approached us and said, hey, would you like a Reverb shop? We'll build it for you for free. So they would build your thing. So they did that to a lot of companies. They would reach out to them. So it was just how they were growing. So there you go. Those are the three big things of this week that we talked, that blew up my phone. All of it not very interesting. I don't know why the Mesa Boogie thing and the Gibson thing is such a huge thing to talk about. I literally could not. That's why I didn't make a video. When it happened that day, I think a bunch of my friends and a bunch of you guys reached out and said, "Are you gonna make a video?" And I'm like, I don't know why this even matters. I think the only thing it affects is if you're a diehard Mesa Boogie fan and you're concerned that the quality of Mesa Boogie or something about that you love about Mesa Boogie is going to change. That's the only valid thing I can see, is that that's upset you. Everything else, I don't know why it would apply to you. I don't know. Maybe I don't see it, but I'll read your comments and maybe somebody will make a point that really drives home why this is good or bad. Okay. I have some questions penned. As you guys know, I want to always thank everybody who comes before the show actually starts and puts questions up. And please understand, I don't have them in absolute order, but I do have them, so I'm going to hit them real fast. The first one's from Joshua. It says, Phil, thanks for hosting this every week. Would like to ask if you prefer PRS SE Hollow-body standard or Hollow-body Piezo. Thank you. So I think he's asking me between the PRS SEs of the Hollow-bodies, do I like the one with the Piezo or one without the Piezo? I like the Piezo one a lot. And it's a hefty price increase to get to there, but it's significant. And like I said, I have a core hollow body too. I'm pointing at it behind me. For those of us in the podcast, I'm pointing at my hollow body, my core one, my real one. So dumb to say that stuff. Anyways, my core, my expensive one. Every time we say real, why don't we say my expensive one? That's what that means. When somebody's like, you have a Gibson? Yeah, I have an Epiphone. Oh, I thought you had a real one. And you're like, no, I have money in my pocket still. Anyways, so never understood the real thing. But so yeah, I have a PRS core and I have the PRS SE Piezo guitar, and I prefer the SE Piezo for quality of sound wise. Playing wise, I like my hollow body core because I like the body's a little smaller, the neck's a little thinner. It's just a little nicer for me, comfortable wise. But man, the SE. So I prefer the SE Piezo. The next question that was sent early, and again, I thank you guys so much for doing that. Brent said, can you give thoughts on the Gibson Sg versus the PRS S2 McCarty Thinline? So what he's talking about is that PRS, the S2 series, Stevensville 2 series of Paul Reed Smith guitars, they have a McCarty line, the 594, and one of the three that they make, the single cut, the double cut, is a thin line. It's a thinner body guitar. He wants to know which one would I prefer, the SG or the PRS S2 McCarty Thinline, and maybe the regular S2 McCarty. So that's a different thing, but I understand. Thinline clearly be. So he's saying, okay, in his mind, the Thinline PRS S2 McCarty is a competitor of the SG. That's what he's getting with this question is, hey, and out of those two, what would I pick? Well, I'm going to play the game like this. Same price, I buy the SG. Why? Because I did. Obviously, I clearly had the ability to buy the S2 McCarty Thinline, and I chose to buy an SG. To me, a Gibson SG is like an iconic guitar. So here's where they're different, and this is where I see your logic, but I'm going to give you my logic too. I think your logic makes sense. S2 McCarty Thinline and a Gibson SG are both economical versions of things that those companies make, right? So they're both high-end, but high-end economical, right? In other words, it's not a $3,000 guitar. I get that, right? It's still not cheap, but it's not $3,000. That being said, I don't see the SG as an inexpensive version of anything. I look at the Gibson SG as the same way I looked at the Fender Telecaster and the Stratocaster. They're two different guitars and they're the same. I know players, and I know Gibson does value them differently because Gibson will make a standard Gibson Les Paul at $2,500, and for less than $2,000 you can get the standard SG, I think, right? I don't remember because I bought mine used. So, so what's my point? My point is I don't see them as a hierarchy with the SG. I love the SG. I prefer the SG over the Gibson Les Paul. I have Gibson Les Paul because it's iconic and it's a fun guitar to have, and I'm lucky enough in my collection to have obtained a Gibson Les Paul. However, that being said, if I had to play out with one of them, if it was my main guitar I was picking, I'd pick the SG in a second. I like the SG better. So I'd pick the SG over the S2 because I did. That's why I'm saying that. And then you also mentioned, well, what about the regular PRS S2 594? I actually had one of those, loved it, bought an SG. So, but I like PRS. Overall, I like PRS quality over Gibson, but there's just, Gibson's got legacy, and that's worth something too. Tone and legacy. Edgar says, have you ever played or worked on a made in Mexico Fender Stratocaster Squier series? I have, but to say I have, yeah, I'm familiar with them. I probably sold one or two over the years, but mostly, yeah, I probably had one or two on the bench. And so I know you're asking, like, have I ever done it? The answer is yes, but I'm sure you probably want to know anything else I can add to that. Here's the only thing I can add to that. I remember not thinking anything very good or bad about them. It's like indifferent. Like I remember thinking, it wasn't like, these are hunks of crap, or this is the best guitar ever. How does everybody not know about this? It was like, yeah, they were good guitars. I'm a big proponent for anything made in Mexico Fender. I went on a tirade once with Marty Schwartz about how much I love them, and then when we did the video, they clickbaited the crap out of the thumbnail. It's awesome. It's like, I think it says Phil McKnight Gear. I'm doing off memory. Gear Lord thinks made in Mexico Strats are the best thing ever, and it's because I told him if all my guitars were gone. That was the question Marty asked me. If all my guitars were gone tomorrow, and I had a budget, a realistic budget, what one guitar would I buy? And I said, it's a Mexican Strat, and I'm being honest. That's what I would have. Okay, so next question that I pinned. Again, these are all from before the show started. So again, thank you, Brian, for coming early and posting a question. I appreciate you guys doing that. It says, Phil, if I bought 2 new Reverend guitars, you pick one. He's talking about me. And I'll pick one. He's going to pick one. And then have them sent to me. Would you play them for a couple months and post a Reverend review and then send the guitars to me? Yes and no. So let me tell you how that would have to happen if you were interested in doing that. Okay. Preferably, if you're asking me to let's do a reciprocal favor thing like here. Okay. So if you're asking me, this is what I would be willing to do. If you want to buy 2 Reverend guitars and have them sent to me, I still don't want to pick one. Okay. So I know you said I pick one and you pick one. They're your guitars. I don't want to pick your guitar. Okay? I don't need those kind of pressure. If you were willing to do that, here's what I would want to do. You would have to buy them, have them shipped to me, and I would only review one of them. Okay, I would only, and I'm saying maybe 2 happens, but that's a mystical probability. But I would pick the one of the 2 I like the best. I would definitely do a video review it for you. I would make sure both guitars are set up okay and everything's fine for you. As like I said, reciprocal arrangement, make sure you're fine. And then, and if, we'll have them shipped to you. Does it make sense? If you're willing to foot the bill, which means you would have to ship them to me and ship them to yourself. Like I'm not out anything on this. I'll make sure they're set up great. Cause again, that's where we're reciprocating, my setups, the rate I charge a setup would be worth it for the shipping because the shipping is less than my setup charge. But I'd be willing to do that. But here's what would have to happen. I'd have to know when they're coming, and then I would specifically have to be ready and then do the videos and then get them to. So it shouldn't be weeks or months. It would have to happen on the spot. The reason is because when things are left to the back burner in my world, they just stay on the back burner. If something comes in and I'm not ready for it because I'm doing something else, it'll never get done. It'll just sit here for months and months and months. And that's not fair to you and it's not fair to me. So yeah, I've actually done that before. So a couple of the guitars I've reviewed are exactly what you're saying. Those are scenarios that you're saying. People have reached out, friends, viewers, same deal. Yeah, if you're willing to do that, sure, I'm willing to do it. Okay, so next one was from Matt. What does Matt want? He says, Phil, help! Exclamation part. He needs a lot of help. Help! He says, I have a guitar that sounds dull, as if a blanket is over the speaker. Okay. I've tried various pickups and have new wiring harness from Emerson, and it's not the amp. I don't know what else to do. Well, the only thing missing, Matt, is the type of guitar. So I don't know what type. Some guitars are dull. Some guitars are dark sounding and they don't have a lot of brightness to them. So that's possible. It could be the type of bridge or components or type, you know what I mean? There's different guitars that have characteristics. Hollow bodies have a lot of mids and people think they're really warm sounding, but hollow bodies in my experience are really mid driven. It's how I perceive that. So I don't know exactly what kind of guitar you're having, but I will tell you this. What you're experiencing is very common. It's hard to get bright tone into a guitar that's not bright. So it's always easier to darken up a bright guitar than it is to warm up a dark guitar, if that makes any sense. You can make a Strat less bright, but it's hard to get a Les Paul to be brighter sounding. Okay. Or have more highs. So you've tried different pickups, but I don't know what pickups you tried and what you're doing. So this isn't a whole lot of information, but what I will tell you is I don't think it's your electronics. I don't think it's the pickups even. It might be the type of bridge. It might be the setup on the guitar. Those are things you have to consider. Could be strings, but it's not likely because I'm assuming you're just using standard strings, but there's other things in play. What I will tell you is if you're having this problem, that's the whole point, right? You're having this problem and it's frustrating because you're not getting a sound. What I would do is you could do something really easy to cheat. Take an EQ pedal and EQ the sound to where it sounds right. And it will kind of sound, I don't want to say artificial, but it's forced, right? Because the EQ is forcing the tone. So once you get it bright and it sounds right, then you know it can be done. And now you got to just focus your ear and everything you're doing to get the guitar to sound like that pedal, that EQ pedal, the way you got it right. And that's part of the problem too, is because sometimes you're making adjustments to the guitar, either electronically or setup wise, and you don't have an end goal result. So you need to actually hear the guitar the way you want it to sound first. It's going to help you visualize how you're going to get there. And sometimes it actually points out something. Like when you play it one day with that EQ pedal, you're like, man, this is what I'm looking for. This clarity. And you're like, okay, what is it? And you could have a nut that just isn't resonating correctly. There's all kinds of things. But again, the big issue is I need just a little bit more information than that. Okay, what else? You guys, by the way, a lot of you guys are like 2 hours early to the show. So I have a couple pinned questions from 2 hours before the show started. So again, that's why I'm saying thank you. Okay, so this is from Nikos. Nico said, hey, Phil, do you think there are any differences between made in Mexico Strats and Teles from the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s? There absolutely is, because there are significant changes in those years. So let's be clear on this. Okay, first, 2007, and I'm doing off memory, but I'm pretty sure that's the right year, but if Google it, right? Google will know maybe, but I'm pretty sure it's 2007. 2007 made in Mexico standard series Stratocasters and before will have smaller fret wire than the not only the American Strats at that time, but the current made in Mexico Strats now. So in 2007, around the recession, okay, so around the recession, there were some changes made to the Mexican Stratocaster line, and it was done probably to adapt to like what they call Toyota, the brand Toyota efficiency practices, right? So Toyota had this, they're really into this, like you make a workstation and you put all the tools in the workstation and multiple workers use the same tools, right? And it's make an efficiency, right? And so Fender around the recession, 2007, started making changes that would also be beneficial to them financially, right? Because hey, everybody's hurting a little bit. And so some of the things they did is they went to fret wire that was more standardized. So in other words, all of a sudden the main Mexico fret wire necks had the same fret wire as the American ones. And all of a sudden that's when you start noticing the potentiometers and the 5-way switches and the 3-way switches in the Teles in the made in Mexico standard series and the American standard series all of a sudden were the same. So, and it worked both ways. Sometimes you saw some of the American stuff get made in Mexico parts, and sometimes you saw the made in Mexico stuff get some American parts. Again, it's a lot easier to buy 20,000 5-way switches for both series of guitars than what they were doing before, which is buying different switches or different potentiometers, different output jacks, different fret wire. So in 2007 and forward, the Made in Mexico line got a revision, and I believe the other revision is the Made in Mexico logo. That's how you can tell, by the way, besides your fret wire. The other revision in 2007 forward was Made in Mexico Stratocasters. The Made in Mexico logo was removed to the back of the headstock. It's like they got punished. They're like, oh, we're not so proud of that, and they put it in the back of the headstock. I know that sounds horrible to say it that way, but it's kind of like it's not a selling feature, so let's get rid of it off the headstock. Maybe that's their logic. I don't know, but they did do it. So if you have you can tell when you have Made in Mexico, if it says Made in Mexico on the front of the headstock, you know it's before 2007. After 2007, it'll be on the back of the headstock. So again, so those are some of the changes that changes. So yes, a 90s Mexican Strat has different features than the Made in 2007 forward. And then of course, you said the 2010s, I want to say it was 2016. It could have, I think sounds right, where they went to the Player series. And again, the Mexican Strat saw revisions again, 2-point tremolo, 22 frets instead of 21 frets. You know what I mean? So a lot of changes like that, new upgraded pickups. So again, there are changes. So when you're asking, is there differences between them? Those are the differences. Do I think there's quality differences? No. Not in the way they're built. I think they are all quality instruments, and I would have there's no like, don't buy the 93s. Well, there is no, yeah, you know what I mean? Don't buy the 93s. So, but those are the actual physical changes of the guitars. I do prefer bigger frets. So I do like the post 2007s because of the larger fret wire. And I do like 22 frets. So there you go. Even though I don't play it, I just like looking at it, I guess. George says, hey, Phil, do you know who makes locking tuners that would fit my Sterling Albert Lee? I've contacted Sterling, and they referred me to a parts dealer that doesn't have them. So those tuning keys, so the problem you have when you're talking about the Music Man Sterling series and that guitar and some of the other guitars like that guitar, is the problem is that they do 3-on-2. That's their thing, right? It's a big pain in the ass in a world that wants to sell everything 6-in-line and 3-on-3s. So for those of you guys that, visually you understand what I'm saying is 4 tuning keys are essentially right-handed facing and 2 tuning keys are left-handed facing. So like 3-on-3, but it's 4-on-2. So no one really wants to sell sets like that. That's your first problem. So you have to find companies like Hipshot or I think ratio tuners from Graphtec, I think will do it that way. I don't know. But if you reach out to Graphtec, they have amazing people there who will answer your questions. So keep that in mind. But Hipshot, companies that will sell you, that will build you a set of tuners is your first problem. You have to do that because otherwise you're going to buy 2 sets of tuners and cannibalize together. The other problem you have on that particular guitar is that guitar, the way those tuning keys are faceted on the guitar is they have the 2 plugs. Right, so they don't have a screw. There's no hole with a screw in it. They're like kind of like the Fender tuners where they have 2 plugs that go in the 2 holes, so the tuner sits into those 2 plugs, and those spacing of those 2 plugs are different than, let's say, it's standard something like the Fender stuff. So the ratio tuners might actually be the right spacing on that. But again, if you contact Graphtec and Ratio, you talk to people like Justin, and those guys are awesome. If you email them and say, hey, here's my problem, they might be able to help you. You might get an email that says, hey, we don't sell, that way. You have to buy 2 sets. But they'll help you. They'll at least respond to you and get you. But that's your problem. If it was me, I would. Let's put it this way: if you brought me the guitar, I wouldn't even worry about that. I would just find. I would use a 4-on. I would have a set. I would cannibalize a set because I have them. Godo or any other tuners that have the actual wing where the screw goes in, and I would just drill new holes and put those in. But for you, I would try to find something that either fits in those holes or an adapter plate. Yeah, that's an interesting problem. That's the problem when you're unique. See, Music Man wants to do something unique, and unique doesn't really fit in the aftermarket world. Okay, next one is what? Hey, Phil, it's Thunder. Dude, this is crazy. The guy's name's Thunder, or the woman's named Thunder. Somebody's name's Thunder. That's a cool sign-on. Thunder says, hey, Phil, how do you handle the straps on all those guitars? Is there any easy way to make one strap rule them all? I use DiMarzio strap locks, clip locks. I don't recommend that. A reason I say that is because I use them because I like them, but I've also been using them since 1992. That's why I have them, because once I go that way, go that route. So it's not that I'm recommending everybody switch them. If it was me, you want one strap to do them all, I would use either Schaller strap locks or Dunlop strap locks. Pick one of those brands, buy some in bulk. You can buy, so again, I don't know if Schaller does it, but I know Dunlop does. You can buy the locks for your strap, and then you can buy the actual pins by themselves. You don't have to buy 20 strap lock sets. You can buy 1 or 2 lock sets and then get the actual button, the strap buttons, and then put them all on your guitar. So I've done that many times for customers. They bring me 5 guitars. I buy a Dunlop strap lock set, and then I buy 4, of the actual strap lock buttons, and then you can do that. And your strap will universally lock in all the guitars. And again, just Google search if Schaller does it as well, if that's your preference. But Dunlop does it, and I've never really thought about if Schaller does it. And there you go. And both those brands have good and bad things about them in the quality. I've seen mostly good though for both brands. I like both, use both. Guitar Guy says, hey, Phil, does it make sense to upgrade a guitar with a pricey set of pickups when you only have access to modeling or solid state amps? Oh, that's a great question. Difference in tone is probably less, I'm going to say notable in I'm thinking it says notable in a tube amp. To answer your question, this is really the core of his question. What he wants to know is he's got a modeling amp. Let's just say this because we're going to keep it simple. You have a modeling amp. Let's say a good amp, right? Modeling amp. Doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be the inexpensive $99 amp. You have a good modeling amp. Does changing the pickups really affect the way the amp, because the amp's not so reactive? That's the best way to think about it, right? It will make a difference, but it will make a lot less difference if you have a tube amp or a solid state amp that is relying on input signal to change tone. And that's where modeling gets a little tricky. And some modeling amps are really, really high tech in the idea that if you put a hotter guitar in them, they'll pad it down. And then if you put a little weaker guitar, they bring up, like a compressor pedal would do. They bring it up or lower down, just like compression. So it's not that it's not relevant. I think anytime you want to change your pickups, you're going to change the core of the sound of your guitar, and the core of your sound of guitar is where the sound is going to start for the most part. So might as well do it. But yes, you're right to think it's not going to be the massive difference you're hoping for, but it will be different. I use modeling amps, and I change guitars out all the time, and I notice the differences are subtle, but they're there. So again, good way of looking at it, because you're right. It's subtle, but it's there. All right, I think that's all the pinned ones before. Let me double check real quick. Yep, those are the ones I grabbed. I want to thank everybody who came in early and dropped those questions for me. All right, hold on a second. Since I'm drinking water, last week I told you guys that it's hard to talk for like 2 hours, and I have to drink water. And you guys gave me some great suggestions, but one suggestion in particular was really good. And they said the reason I need to drink so much water is I'm dehydrated, and that you have to hydrate before the show. And they suggested maybe 24 hours before the show. And that's what I remember, like reading reading in the book, Sebastian Bach's book, about how he drinks like a bottle of water, like 40 minutes exactly before the show or something like that. So I did that today. I think it's helping. So, but it's definitely, thank you for the advice, and I'll keep messing with it because, like I said, it's a lot of talking. Okay. We have some super chats all pinned up. Hold on. Okay, hold on a second. Let me get to this other screen. I have another question. Sorry, one more pinned question from the beginning. The question was, what set of PAF pickups would I recommend as the best? And that was the question. And the answer is, the question is not for the budget, right? You're saying what is the best, in my opinion, in Phil's opinion, what is the best 59 or PAF pickups? If I was going to say the best pickups, PAF pickups, I would say they're Whiz pickups. Those are probably the best that I've ever heard. I think they were like, almost life-changing how good they were, but they are $450 a set, or maybe even more now. And then if you don't want to go crazy, because that's crazy money, you can buy a guitar for that. Maybe Lindy Fralin after that. It's the second best set of PAFs. But again, you asked what I think are the best ones, not which ones for the money, so I'm going to go with that answer. The Whiz, like Cheese Whiz, WIZZ, Whiz pickups. If I think I have a set of Whiz pickups. It literally, I think when I bought mine, they were $350 a set, and that was like, I feel like it hurt for like a month. But they're so good. They're so good. I'd put them in all my Gibsons if I could afford it. So I think I'd have to let go of some guitars if I bought more Whiz pickups. And Lawrence is saying Lawlers. That's another one too. I'd actually put Lawlers equal to the Lindy Fralins, I'd say, in my experience, putting them in the guitars. So that's those are my favorites. And then everybody after that are really good, but they're a lot less money. You get the DiMarzio PAFs, or you get the 59s from, or Gibson pickups. They're all great, but it's a little less painful. But if you want the best, I would definitely go. I would check out the Whiz pickups. I don't think I can't imagine you wouldn't be totally happy with those. Okay. Let's refresh and hit some more of these questions. And what else? Okay, JSL Project, JSL, did a super chat. Says, hey, I got a 2 Notes Cab M. Hey, that's this thing. Hold on. I got a lot of grief for this, by the way, because I did this on a video once. I go, this! And then I went away, and everyone's like, what was it? And I didn't say. I forgot. I was a little excited. He's saying he got this. This is the 2 Notes Cab M. Let's read his question. It says, hey, Phil. No, didn't say that. He said, yeah, he said, hey, I got a 2 Notes Cab M after watching your video. I feel like it's the most important piece of gear I've got in a while. Hope you're having a great day. I'll be watching tomorrow. It's a tomorrow joke. Hey, JSL, this is today when you're watching this, but it's really yesterday, which is now for you tomorrow. Yes, I agree with you. This is, when I did my year in review, I said this was probably the best thing I tried all last year. Literally, this is my favorite piece of gear. This is the 2 Notes Torpedo Cab M. What it does is not only do I have a video, so you could click on that video, is basically it lets you take any amp or any pedal and directly plug it into either a PA or an interface, and it's amazing. I really love it. I absolutely love it. So I'm glad you like it, because I absolutely love it. Can't say enough good things. Jared says, hey, Phil, I just got a D'Angelico Premier DC and will be upgrading the electronics to a 920D harness. 920D, literally number 920 and then the letter D, is a company that makes preloaded pick guards and harnesses on the internet. Very good stuff. I've owned many of their stuff. They sell pick guards and all kinds of stuff. He says, what are your favorite 4-conductor PAF pickups? Oh, that was the question. Oh, so that's where I grabbed it, and I'm hitting it again. So, Jared, that was one of my favorite PAF pickups, the Whiz pickups. There you go. Maybe you could put them on layaway. I wish they had layaway. I would do that. It says, every note counts. That's the sign-on. It says, will Fender Tele pickups twisted Tele mount onto a G&L ASAT Classic G&L neck pickup MFD screws to the body, and the Fender pickup screws to the pick guard. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. So it's not, I understand what you're saying. So basically what he's asking is like on the neck pickup of a G&L, the pickup is screwed into the body, where he's saying the pickup is screwed to the Tele pickup on his Fender is screwed to the pick guard. But that's actually not actually true. Some Fender Telecasters have the pickup screwed to the pick guard, and some have it screwed into the body. I believe the more vintage accurate they are, they're screwed into the body. So here's what that would entail. Okay, so here's what all you have to do what you want to do. If you want to put the Twisted Tele Fender pickup in your G&L, you just got to make sure that you either do one of two things, and that's up to you, but I'm going to go with the first one if it was me. You got to get screws that are small enough to go through the holes in the pickup right now that will go into the body. And if they're smaller in diameter than the screws the G&L is using, you would want to put some Elmer's glue, wood glue, and a toothpick and fill those two holes, and then drill them, and then literally put in the new smaller screws. And the reason I'm telling you that way is because the other thing that you have to do, if you don't do it that way, you have to drill out the holes on that Twisted Tele pickup for the larger screw. That doesn't seem like a big deal, but what that means is you'll never be able to top mount it, in other words, mount it to a pickguard again, because all the threaded screws will be too small. So that's the answer. If you're lucky, G&L is using the small enough screws anyways. And I hope that makes sense. I know it's like tough when I'm just talking and there's no visual aids, but so that's it. But it's super easy. It's done every day. It's not a hard thing at all. Nothing to be worried about, like I said, but just give you words of caution. If it was me, before I would drill out the holes in the pickup, again, I'm just reiterating. Wow. Maybe I'm drunk. Maybe something's in this water. Anyways, before I would drill out the holes in the pickup, I would dowel and fill the holes in the guitar and re-drill them, because that pickup will be useless for top mounting afterwards if you drill out the holes bigger. And there's no way to fix that, really. You have to put a washer behind it. It's a nightmare. Dale Howard just said, hey, love all the helpful vids. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Spencer Green says, love the show. What would you do to refurbish... Literally the screen moved. Okay, here it is. What would I do to refurbish an old Epiphone Les Paul to improve tuning stability? I'm thinking locking tuners and a new nut. That's exactly what I would do. I would replace the nut. That's the biggest part. A good nut is literally half the battle. Most tuning instability is the nut. That's where all the problems come from almost all the time. So you just want to make sure you have nice hard material and the nut is cut correctly. And once you have that, half the battle is over, because the locking keys are not about tuning stability so much as they're about quick restring changes. So if you know how to restring a guitar correctly and you're wrapping the strings correctly so that they don't slip, and there's tons of ways to do that. I have a video where it shows you all three methods of how to restring guitars, and you can choose which one you want, but all three of those are ways that either factories use or I've used or other technicians use that work well. If you're restringing your guitar correctly, the nut is where all the problems are going to come from, especially since in that guitar there's no tremolo or anything moving on the bridge point. So I would just make sure the nut is right. And then if you got the cash, go ahead and change out those tuning keys to lock-in ones, because it'll just make restringing a lot faster. And you can maybe upgrade the tuners at that time as well, because the locking keys sometimes are a little better than stock tuners. But like, for instance, if your Epiphone has Grover tuners on it, 18 to 1s, and you get Grover locking keys, you're not getting better tuners in the ratio. You're just getting locking tuners. So, Old Man Fran got an HSS Affinity. I love it. Gave it ratio tuners, rolled the fretboard, Tusk nut, and a PRS SE Custom 24 before upgrade Strat pickups. Am I missing out on a single coil bridge? So let's get to, so obviously he's modded up his guitar, which is awesome. It's a good way to take a guitar and make a good guitar, great guitar. That's cool. But his main core of this question is, he's got a humbucker single, and is he missing something by not having a single coil bridge? In my opinion, no. But you can always coil split that bridge. So since you're in the upgrading mood, you can always put a coil split on that humbucker if it has a 4-conductor, make that a single coil, and It won't be tilted like a single coil would, and it's not the same as a single coil, but it'll get you in the range of it, enough to convince the audience that it's happening. The audience can't tell that that's not the real single coil. It's not the real deal. That's not Memorex. It's, and then I'll let you know. I personally, I prefer HSS strats, you know what I mean? As a whole, that's like my preference, so I don't think you're missing out on anything. And the core reason why, and again, this is why I want to talk about this, reason why I think he's asking the question is because he's telling us he has a Paul Reed Smith dual humbucker guitar. So he's like, hey, I have two guitars. This is a good question. He has two guitars and they both have bridge humbuckers in the bridge. Hey, am I missing out? Should I have one guitar that has a single coil in the bridge? No, you can coil split. I think you'll be close there. I don't think a lot of players use the single coil bridge that much. Some do, not all the time. Ken says, what does Ken want to know? Ken, he's got Ken Domic reaction channel. Why did I say recreation? He's got the Domic reaction channel. He says, what happened to nano amps you talked about a while back? They're top secret still. Can't tell you about that. Isn't that sad? Can't do it. What I will tell you, Ken, is that, things are coming out. And it's NAMM time, even though it's virtual NAMM time. Products coming out. So I'm hoping they get announced soon. I'm imagining there's probably a delay because they're made overseas, I'm sure, like everything, and there's delays for stuff. But could be holding out for the NAMM show to see. Like I said, there's this virtual NAMM show. Everybody seems to be wanting to release. If you guys don't know, every company that I've talked to, which isn't very many, but at least it's like 4 or 5, have all been, I got the gist. They all seem to be wanting releasing videos between the 12th and the 20th and really hyper-focused on the 12th to the 15th. That seems to be where the videos are all popping. It's been actually an interesting thing because, a friend of mine reached out and said, he asked me if I knew anything about the new Fenders, and I don't. And I told him, I said, companies really don't interact with me very much. Like I said, I interact with maybe 3 or 4 companies a month. Maybe. I'm rounding up. But what's funny was all the companies, all 3 or 4 of the ones I talked to, all wanted a video on like the 12th to the 15th. So I'm wondering what's going to happen with all these YouTube channels, because I think it's going to be an interesting time, guys. You get your popcorn ready, because I think we're going to get a crap ton of videos. I think channels are going to have to literally put out, if they're out there doing stuff for companies, they're going to have to put out 2-3 videos in the same day. Because literally everything I've seen says everybody's releasing at that time. So I think you don't have much to go. It's the 8th. So starting next week, you're going to start seeing a lot of NAMM, our new product releases is what I see. So I'm doing 2 new product releases for the NAMM. And I say 2 hesitantly because I've only received 1 of the products. So I did that video, but I'm hoping to have the other one, but I don't have the product yet. So it's making me a little nervous. I'm going to have to be putting out a video very, very quickly in a short time. BK, hey BK, what's up? Says, thank goodness it's Friday. New guitar week. You got a new guitar? What did you get, BK? BK got a guitar and it says, got my first PRS Core 2020 McCarty. That's legit. That's got the ducats. That's money. That's good guitar. Very cool. So 2020 McCarty, what's great is it's should be nitrocellulose lacquer. Very cool guitar. Good job. I think that's a guitar that that's an heirloom guitar. That's a guitar you hand down for, hopefully your kids will have it. And if you don't have kids, then your dogs will enjoy it. If you don't have dogs, I don't know. Give it to a strange person in your will. Okay. Old man Fran. Got another question. It says, Fender Mustang LT25 okay for bass practice at home? Yeah, bass amps and guitar amps, especially practice amps. Obviously, there's a tone thing. So bass amps going to have a lower EQ sweep. They're going to have more low-end frequency, and that's nice for the bass. That's important. But generally speaking, they're the same. You can put a guitar. So let's talk about easy. Here's the rule to make things easy for everyone. This is the rule. That's the rule I've followed for 20 years. I've never blown a speaker or an amp in my life, not once, ever. Now, of course, by saying that means next week, one of these poor amps in this room are going to die, because that's just how Murphy's Law works. But up until this point, I've never blown a speaker or an amp. Let me tell you the rule I follow. I can put any guitar into any bass amp. That is fine. Doesn't matter. Don't even worry about it. Stick any guitar, plug it in any bass amp, play it. If you like the way it sounds, great. Doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt anything. If you plug a bass into a guitar amp, the only thing you can do is one of two things. If it's an active bass, you can push that amp a little hard, but it won't hurt anything, but be aware of that. But more importantly, you can blow the speakers because guitar speakers are thin. That's why you can put a guitar through a bass amp, because a bass amp is like a PA speaker or a keyboard amp where it's got it's a thinner cone or thicker cone. It can take more abuse, and there's nothing the guitar can do even with distortion to create enough abuse for that speaker. However, a bass guitar can pretty much blow a guitar speaker. Okay, knowing that, here's all you have to know. If it's a practice amp, a lot of times digital practice amps like guitar and stuff don't even have guitar speakers in them. So let's start there. They have some kind of other speaker that they're using for reference, but it's not a thin guitar speaker like a vintage 30 or something. So you're safe anyways. Other thing is, most guitar amps now, as you can see, they're using different cone speakers on newer amps because everybody's down tuning the guitars to well into the bass range. So those speakers usually can take a lot more low end. But more importantly, where it would really damage the speaker is where you turn the speaker up. So if you're running the amp. So my answer, old man Fran, is that if you're running your bass into your Mustang LT25, as long as you're not cranking it, you're safe. You know what I mean? You're fine. And keep in mind, people like ZZ Top and Van Halen both used their bass guitarists both played through guitar amps. Wolfgang currently still does stuff like that. So like I said, so I would just, if it was me, I would plug in, because I do it all the time. I'll plug my bass in my guitar amp real quick for a reference or play for a few minutes because it's right next to me. I just don't crank the thing. You don't have to be overly worried about it. Just and here's the good news. No speaker that I've ever experienced just blows. If it's going to blow, it was farting and making trust me, you know it's coming. Okay, as soon as you hear that weird flubby, flappy sound or a farty sound or anything like that, you need to back off. You know what I mean? And that's even if it's a guitar. So that's the rules I followed, and so far that's where I've been. So, I'm not saying follow what I do. I'm just saying I can't tell you anything different than that. Shawnee is a Cubs fan. What do you think of the Fender Highway One series? Oh, I'm bringing back the past. I just got a 2007 Telecaster a month ago, and I'm digging it. Also, it's my first Telecaster. The Highway One Fender series, if you don't know what that was, Fender's very first affordable soiree, right, foray into cheaper made in the USA guitars was the Highway One series. So what they did was they had the American Standard series and they came out with the Fender Highway One series. And what they were satin nitrocellulose lacquer bodies. And they were using, I think at that time, were they Texas Special pickups? I'm going off memory. They could have been something else. I thought they were Texas Special. Again, I'm going off memory. Otherwise, and I think they had the same bridge for a while as the Made in Mexico stuff. But other than that, it was all Made in America stuff and really good, but satin finish. Now, here's what's funny. Those eventually turned into the American Specials. So Fender had Highway Ones. Those went on for years. And then they switched that series to American Special. And when they did that, maybe they got upgraded pickups in. That's what I'm thinking of. But that's when they went to a polyurethane candy finish, hard gloss finish. And what do I think of the Fender Highway One series? It's funny. At the time, everybody was like, this sucks because they're just satin natural. Now they relic great. They're actually, it's the guitar to have. The only, people didn't like them because I've sold a lot of them. People didn't like the 70s headstocks. I think the 70s headstock is cool. So I think that's cool. I think the satin finish now, back then I didn't think it was cool. I was like, oh, this sucks. It gets all glossy when you play it. But now I'm like, oh, it relics, it wears in, it's cool. So do I dig them? I love them. I think they're great. I wish I would have. Dude, there was a time, watch this. Shawnee is a Cubs fan. You want to hold your stomach because I'm going to tell you some. Dude, there was a time where we were buying Highway One series guitars because what happened was they would make special runs for Guitar Center and then Guitar Center would sell a ton of them and they would just blow them out stupid cheap. Yeah, like $600 new. Guitar Center was doing $600 new. It was really painful as a Fender dealer because people would come in your store and be like, "Hey, can you do $550 out the door on that Highway One?" I'm like, "No," and they go, "Guitar Center's got him for $550," but it was in a special color. But anyways, towards the end of the Highway Ones when they weren't doing so great, Fender, man, we were getting those in the $300 range dealer cost. God, I should have put 10 of them aside. I don't know why I didn't do it. At the time, we just bought them and flipped them. But there's certain times like that now. if I was gonna ever get back into retail, which I won't, but if I was ever to get back into retail, when I see stuff like that now I would literally, anytime companies did stuff like that, I'd be like, let's just put all that stuff in a air conditioned storage unit, stack up 20 of those deep. So, all right, Alchemy Audio. Hey Phil, I want to wire up my guitar like, I don't know how, Dustin Kincher, Stingray. Oh, okay, the Stingray. Okay, can't find diagrams. Any idea how to do that with the regular components? I don't see the I don't know, because I don't know the guitar even really off the top of my head. So it's one of those things where you could always try and call the manufacturer. Sometimes we've just had this conversation on my Patreon hang this week about getting special diagrams. You can always contact the manufacturer. Sometimes they'll give it to you. Sometimes. And also go to forums, because a lot of times, like, they go to forums, you can figure it out. But a lot of times you can reverse engineer it. You can figure it out. The other thing that you can do too, because you said you want to wire up the guitar like that guitar, here's something that's also worked for me very well. See, in the internet now, without all the reach we have, what you can do is you can go to forums that are maybe like a Music Man Stingray forum. And all you really need to do, if you can't find the wiring diagram, which is what I've done. I've done this at least 24 times with great success. I just ask for someone, hey, does anyone have this guitar? Can you snap a picture of the electronics with your phone and send it to me? And people will do it. They're excited to do it. Reach out on Facebook, anybody. Hey, does anyone have a friend that has a guitar? Can anyone snap a picture and text it to me? Once you have the picture, you can figure out the diagram from there. And what I always do is ask them to take like 10 pictures and send it to me, because they always take pictures of the weirdest things. Like half the stuff's missing, but if they do 10 different angles, you'll get it. But that's a good way to do it. Just reach out. And hey, we have a community here, so if any of you guys have that, put a message in there, and maybe you guys can send him a picture of your guitar. Bruce says, what did Bruce say? Bruce says, 2011 Gibson Melody Maker Special, new nut, frets polished and filed, new pickups, new wraparound bridge with saddles, action setup. I just hate this guitar. That's the thing about live. I can't preview questions. So, I read these things and I'm just reading it out. And I don't know if you guys do this, but when you're reading, sometimes you're also thinking a little bit. And when I was reading that right now, I'm thinking, this is not going to end the way I think. And then he's like, I hate this guitar. Yep, I knew it was going to be a plot twist at the end. Bruce Willis is a ghost. By the way, this guitar is Bruce Willis, and he's okay. So anyways, so basically you've shoved all the time and money you can possibly think of into this guitar, and you hate it. Thoughts? This axe cannot be sharpened. Well, here's where, Bruce, I'm going to give you some advice that I've given 1,000 times. And if you've never, you've never seen it, or if you have, maybe forgot, so we'll hit you again. The first question I would have asked you, what the 2011 Melody Maker was, do you like the guitar in the first place? I'm going to keep saying this over and over again. I'm telling you, this is my best friend advice. If you were my best friend right now, I would tell you this the same way. If you don't like a guitar, don't modify that guitar. Everybody I've ever seen, including myself, that says, man, you want this guitar, you have this guitar, so therefore you're going to try and make this guitar something you like. I have an analogy. I want to give it to you, and I don't want to offend anybody, but we're going to go with it because it's fun day to day. Modding a guitar you don't like is like trying to get a woman with a bad personality to not have a bad personality. You know what I mean? You can't fix that. If you're not, you know what I mean? So, you can't go, hey, I'll teach her to tell jokes. Or I don't know. Maybe we should say a bad man with a personality. Doesn't matter. My point is, you can't make a bad guitar good. You just can't. You can make a bad guitar better, but you can't make it good. It's just, you won't love it. So that's the problem here. So I'm assuming, obviously, you didn't like the guitar in the first place, because I can't imagine it got worse. Maybe it did. Who knows? So I'm imagining, like, you got this guitar. It's a Gibson, because that's what it is. It's a box. You're checking boxes. You're like, it's Gibson. It's this cool guitar. I should want it. I should like it. And you're just not digging it. So you're doing all this stuff, which are all great logical, steps. Hey, I'll just improve everything. And now I still don't love it. And the reason is because you probably didn't like it in the first place. If you like a guitar, I think you can love it. If you love a guitar, you can love it more. But if you don't like a guitar, you cannot. It's very rare that it happens as you like it. And when people try to argue that with me, they always use the same logic. They go, well, I don't know, Phil. I had a guitar I didn't like, and I put $1 billion into it. I spent 10,000 hours into it, and now it's not so bad. And I'm like, and it will be for sale on Reverb in a month. And then I wait, and then 2 months go by, and it's on sale on Reverb. And I go, yep, because I understand you don't hate it. We're not talking about that. I'm not saying you can take a bad guitar and make it to where you don't hate it. I'm saying you can't take a guitar you don't like and make it great. I've never seen it. Anomalies, maybe. There's always an exception to every rule, but as a whole, save your money. So what's the answer to your question now? You now have an amazing guitar that you set up, polished frets, done other stuff, wraparound bridge, done a new nut, and somebody is going to be very happy when you put that guitar for sale. And they're going to love it, and you're going to take that money that you get, and you're going to buy a guitar that you love, and you will be better for it. Because everything you spend time and money-wise now is just a futile. All right. Copperfield. Oh, Jesus, that's funny. With a C. I hope I could be, I'm pronouncing it wrong. Who the hell knows? But it's cops like K-O-P, P-A, feel. Like feel? Copperfield. I'm pretty sure that's right. So, all right. He just wanted to say thanks. All right, Copperfield. You're welcome for whatever. Thanks. Thank you for the funny sign-on. That's funny. All right. Like I said, some of you guys' sign-ons are like license plates when you're driving down the road. You're like, what does this say? And then I hit you and you're like, oh, yeah. All right. Tony G. What's up, Tony? Good seeing you again. He says, I tried to buy a single 9-gauge Ernie Ball string. Okay. I can usually buy a 3 and 4 packs of just a single string. Could not find any. Finally heard from a friend that at Just Strings, he said they haven't got any shipments from Ernie Ball in 3 months. Yeah, Ernie Ball. Look, Ernie Ball, D'Addario. So Ernie Ball's in California. D'Addario's in New York, man. No one has been shut down harder and longer that I've seen in our industry than California, New York. And not that I've seen. You know what I mean? I'm sure it feels that way to a lot of the states, but I've seen those two states are either come on. When this all started in March of last year and we started, New York was the one that was falling apart first. Okay. And then California fell right after that. Cause again, high population, so I'm not shocked to hear this. I'm sure they're playing catch up. You gotta understand, here's the problem. The problem is even if these companies were at full swing right now, fully making guitars, 3 shifts, which they can't be because of COVID, they're restricted, they're social distancing, they got to scatter the workforce. So most of these companies can't even be at full capacity. And if they are, it's very hard to be. Even if they were at full capacity, there's a 2-month gap where they didn't make any product during a high demand boom. When I was going to share this with you, I should have thought ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone. I have a graph. So I have affiliate links, affiliate links are the things like we're going to talk about in a second, where you click the link and if you buy the thing, I get a piece of that. You hear channels talk about this all the time. And those affiliate links, when you watch them, you see what they do. Last year, it looks like this. It's a straight line and then March hit and it drops a little bit. And then in April, it shoots up to like Christmas levels of insanity of purchases. Now, again, I only affiliate link things we buy, like guitars, picks, cables, straps, you know what I mean? Tools, guitar tools. So, it's all guitar stuff. It's insane. So imagine this, if you will. When I look at that graph, okay, which my graph looks like everyone's graph. When you look at that graph, you have this record high demand during the 2 months where those companies are closed. So it means when they open up, even at full swing, catching up is almost impossible for them. So you got to understand there's just, that's what's going on, Tony. So not what you're saying does not shock me at this time. So you're just going to have to find workarounds to it. It's like we're all doing. It's just how it goes. I don't know if you guys, I'll tell you a funny story happened to me on Saturday, my son decided he was going to make steaks. He's watching YouTube. He likes YouTube as well. He watched some channel that shows you how to cook, and they showed him how to make steaks with like pineapple or something. I don't know. It was really good. Let's start there. It was really good. It was all weird stuff, but it was really good. And so I didn't have propane, so I went to Home Depot to buy propane, and they were out, and they told me, like, yeah. I said, oh, you're out. They go, oh, we're out. And they go, we're only getting half deliveries, and when we get them, we sell it in an hour. So I went to the grocery store, and they were out. So I Googled it and said that basically we're having a propane shortage because 25% of propane that we get comes from, it's a byproduct of making gasoline, and all of us not driving during the summer means there's low demand on fuel, which means there was a low production of propane. So everybody's out of propane. So, and if you're looking for propane, I don't know if you have it, but there's a company called Cinch, CY Inch. And I remembered them in the back of my head. I go, I thought there was a company called Cinch that would deliver propane. So I went online, and it took 5 seconds, and it was actually $1 less than Home Depot, and they delivered a tank of propane to me. So they had it. But yeah, so like I said, when I walked into Home Depot and they go, yeah, we don't have any, it's almost impossible to get right now. I didn't go, what? I went, figures. Yeah, fucking time today. Excuse me, I'm almost cursing there, but you get the idea. You're like, what are you going to say? There's nothing. So yeah, I understand, Tony. It's so just do your best to work around. It's killing me right now because when I'm working on a guitar and I break a high string or any string, it sucks to not have singles right now because then I got to open a whole pack. And I can't charge the customer for that. It just doesn't feel right to me. Be like, hey, when I was working on your guitar, I broke the G string. So I know I charge you $5 for pack strings, but I got to charge you another $5 for the other pack. So I've been cannibalizing packs. So best thing you can do. That note, since we were talking about affiliates, I put an affiliate today's show because I had to share this with you. Remember we were talking about Behringer, which is TC Electronics and all that stuff, not selling to small mom and pops or brick and mortars anymore? Well, today there was an announcement. I don't know if you saw it. I put a link down below for those of you that are into this stuff, that Sweetwater is now one of those. Remember I told you guys there was going to be Sweetwater, Tolman, and AliExpress and Amazon. So apparently, according to what I understand now, Behringer pedals are now $19.99, not on sale. That's like the new price at Sweetwater. So I put a link so you can check them out. I even put that, Josh Scott from JHS, like he did a whole video about why they're great. I can't buy a Behringer pedal because I told you my wife's not big on the Behringer brand, but I was looking at them. I might buy one. Like $20 for a pedal, free shipping. That's crazy. So I put a link down below, but more importantly, if you buy one, I get, I get a kickback from the affiliate. Don't feel like you have to do that. I'm just letting you know there's the link. But when I saw that, I was like, that's what they said they were going to do. They said they were going to stop selling broken motor, partner up with a couple super online dealers and drop pricing. And that's the first sign that maybe that's true. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Okay, now I'm gonna take a break from reading some questions, and I just want to hit some the comments you guys are putting real quick. Christo says wound third have no shortage. Wound third strings, yes. Okay. Ant Hallbrook said, "Hey Phil, I ordered two Fender Johnny Marr signatures from Sweetwater today. You got 2 of them? That's baller." I referenced you. I hope you get a cut. I'll get a kick if you use the link. If you called in, I don't, but don't worry about that, man. It's not about that. You know what I mean? I work in a world of YouTube is a world of pennies. It's a world of millions of views, thousands of clicks, and pennies. And the pennies eventually end up to be dollars, and that goes on from there. So when you support me anyway, just thinking of me is great. Hey, just mentioning me to Sweetwater rep is an important thing, or mention me to a company is important, because again, my biggest issue that I have, every YouTube channel has their own problem, right? So like if you're a small YouTube channel, it's like, how do I get people's attention? My biggest problem is that companies don't really perceive me as valuable to them, because these candid talk shows that I do every week, like I did a video yesterday of Glarry, and the video is called like, what's the true cost of a cheap guitar? You understand, Glarry sent that guitar to me. Okay, it says in the beginning of the video, product provided. Glarry sent that guitar to me, and then my video think about this, a company sent me a guitar, and I made a video called, well, what's the true cost of this guitar? Let me show you. And Glarry, because of the fact that they've done a few videos with me in the past, and you guys bought guitars, they they're just like, yeah, this makes sense. Whatever he's talking about, it ends up as in views, and the views end up in clicks, and clicks into potential customers, and then there's brands sold. Some companies really get that. Some companies do not. And it's not what you think. It's not the controlled corporate evil empire saying, hey, we only deal with YouTube channels that will say what we want to say. It's just they don't understand what the value of what I do is. A lot of companies just think like, oh, he just spouts off stuff, which I do. But they don't understand that we're all guitar geeks and we're just talking about guitars all the time. And that's the exciting part. So like I said, when you guys mention to companies like, oh, I like the McKnight channel, it's good. I've had experiences in the past where companies reached out and flat out told me like, yeah, we knew you existed, but we had a couple of viewers tell us that, they like our products and it's because of you. And then they were like, yeah, because like you understand, Sweetwater, I do tons of affiliates with. We talk about it. I bought the Squier, I plucked it, but I don't think Sweetwater thinks I'm a positive thing on them, right? Because what they get to see is they get to see a video where I go, what's the real value of Sweetwater? And then they don't understand that we're having honest discussion here, and honest discussion is that not everything's infallible, not everything's perfect. You know what I mean? I don't think any of the guitars behind me, except for the one that Nathan made, is a perfect guitar. So to you guys, when I say, oh, this guitar is good, I love this Les Paul, there's a little bit of a blub on the thing and I don't really like that, but I love the way it sounds. You hear, oh, okay, that's a measured response or a measured review of that guitar, but maybe that company hears only the negative and then they get upset. And they don't get mad at me, they just don't ever want to work with me. So there you go. There you go. D. Mitchell said, thank you, moderators. Yes, thank our moderators. We have Ben here. We have Bam Mozzie. We have LPD. Thank you guys so much. If you want to know what a moderator is, they're blue and they have a wrench. And my wife is still currently making the shirt. I'm making a shirt for the moderators. And of course, in typical me fashion, I did exactly what I always do. I mentioned it. Oh, unfreaking believable, right? I did hey, let's make a moderator shirt. And then I said, hey, send me your emails and addresses. And you guys did. And then I told my wife, I sent her, this is true. I sent her the email. Every email you guys sent me, I forwarded it to her and I said, here's the addresses. And my wife goes, for what? And I go, oh, we're making a cool moderator shirt. And she's like, because remember I told you her idea was gift cards. She's like, I want to send them gift cards. I go, no, let's make them a custom shirt. So my wife knew I had that in my head, which she was like, when I announced it, she's like, but we don't have the shirt. So I know you talked about doing a shirt. See, in my head, when I said that day on the show, I said, oh, we're going to do a shirt. When I told her what happened, she's like, I know you mentioned maybe doing a shirt. She's like, okay, I'll do the shirt. What's the shirt design? And I said, and I can't tell you guys because I want a secret right now, but I said, oh, it's this. And she's like, oh, I don't know how to do that. But it's working and it's going to be great. It's going to be a great shirt. I'm excited about it. All right, there you go. So again, I want to thank you and let you know your custom shirts are in process and you will have them as soon as my poor wife finishes making them. Let's see. Bam Ozzy says, talking which, did you receive my email? I had some issues trying to send one. Trying to send one what? A shirt? So Bam Ozzy, I don't. But I know maybe the problem is sometimes your sign-on is different than the email address you have. So maybe I do have a reference to what you're talking about and I'm just not connecting it. Paul says, I got Phil's Sweetwater rep after mentioning him in an email. Oh, cool. Did my Sweetwater rep tell you that I never talked to him? I always feel bad. So I always feel bad. Like I'm always waiting for one of you guys go, I talked to your Sweetwater rep and I never talked to my Sweetwater rep. I always email him and it's always email back and forth. So I never visit. He calls and then it goes, and then I think I told you this. When he calls me, it doesn't go to my phone. It goes to my wife's phone. So my wife's in charge. She has all the money. So she's got the credit cards and all the power. So basically when I buy anything, it's like I need her credit card and I use her phone. Some of you will probably relate. I don't do the bills because I would have a stroke. Okay. Okay. Timothy says, when your locking tuners cost more than your guitar, you might have a Glarry. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I've told you guys I think the funniest weird Glarry story I ever had is I gave 2 Glarrys away. We got the guitars, I did the video, and then I went to send them to a teacher who was doing an after school program. And then my wife told me what it was going to cost to ship the 2 guitars, and it was cheaper to just buy 2 more guitars and have Glarry ship them there. So we ended up having those 2 guitars. That's how I ended up with one of those guitars to mod. Because I had to order 2 more to have sent to him because it was cheaper to buy a Glarry guitar than it was to ship it. That's not even a joke. I wish that's not even an exaggerative joke. It's true. Let's see. Litve. I know I'm doing it out of order, so if you have a super chat and I'm hitting Litve's first, I just because it popped and I see it and I see it's moderators. So when I'm on that subject, I want to talk about it. Moderators, you say yes. Okay. LPD, Lawrence Petros Designs. Please bring Lawrence Petros on the live show one of these days to geek pedals and a little more than that usual. Sure, I would be up for that. I know Lawrence here. I think he'd be up for it too. Obviously, the problem is like with Lawrence, I don't want to Skype or anything. I want him to come here, but it's been COVID and we have to social distance stuff. But I think he'd be up for it. I decided. The problem I had was I've had guests on this podcast. What I've learned is every time I have somebody on the live show, the views drop. And I think it's because you, and I've told you this before, this Friday show, you are the guest. I'm talking to you. You're asking questions, you're making statements, and we're interacting. And I think that's what we all like here. So what I decided to do going forward, and I did one last year, and I'm going to do more this year, is like Sammy Ash is definitely coming on the channel. All of those will be not on Friday. So Friday will never be anything other than this. And then if Ralph comes on, that'll be a bonus on Saturday. And if Lawrence comes on, that'll be a bonus like we'll do Wednesday, and that's how we'll do it. So yeah, if you guys have suggestions of people you'd like to see us do like an extra one of these QAs with, but like I said, it'll always be bonus. Angus wants to know, Mesa Goobie amps, ? Yeah, I was being funny. Gibson Mesa Boogie amps, Goobies, Mesa Goobies. I don't know, right? I was just going for the, I don't want to say clickbait because I don't think that's clickbaity. I was going for the funny on it. So yeah, Mesa Boogie and Gibson. What do you call them now, right? They're going to be, let's be clear. Look, whether Gibson does a great job with Mesa Boogie or not, there will always be a pre and post Gibson era Mesa Boogie amp. That's just a fact. It's you know what I mean? That's just how it works. Trust me, you'll see it. It'll be on Reverb. Here's a pre-Gibson Mesa Boogie. Let's see. Janice says, so I guess your wife is good at guitar. No, she can play a few chords. My wife can work on guitars because she's had to help me over the years. So she can fix guitars. She can do genuinely anything that you need to do as a technician on a guitar. And so from that, she's learned to do things like, play a chord, play a couple scales, do stuff like that. She can play a little piano and she can play ukulele as well. But no, it's not her thing. She and this is always an interesting story because I think it's like the coolest thing to know, and it helps I think cement some of my logic and where I come from mentally with stuff I talk about. My wife and I have been friends since we were 13 years old, and we went to the same obviously junior high, and we lived right next door to the same music store, and at the same time in our lives, independently of each other, right? We were friends at school. We knew each other, right? We didn't hang out all the time after school. My wife got a guitar and she went to music lessons, and I got a guitar and went to guitar lessons, and we had the same exact teacher. And what I will tell you to this day is that my teacher was amazing, and that's why I play guitar and bass to this day. And my wife will tell you that the reason she doesn't play guitar is because her guitar teacher, which is the same teacher, was horrible. And here's why. And this is what the lessons we learned, and this is what helped me kind of think the way I think now, and the way I make content now, and the way I do things. It makes me think a certain way. The reason why the teacher was horrible for my wife was not because I was a guy and she was a girl and they have to learn differently or something stupid like that. It was because I picked my guitar teacher because he was cool. He rocked. He had long rock and roll hair, and he played rock and roll guitars, and he did rock and roll stuff. Metal, right? And I went into my first lesson, and he's like, "What do you want to learn?" I'm like, "Crazy Train." He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna do Iron Man, right? I was like, oh, okay. And then I taught Iron Man. And I remember I learned Iron Man. I made my mom crazy because I played it for her like horribly bad 1,000 times a day. Look at this, Mom, Iron Man. Now, my wife, who's totally not a rocker, goes to the same teacher because she didn't pick him, right? She went in the music store and said, I want lessons. And she said, oh, at 3:00 on Wednesdays. And they said, oh, you have to go to him. So she didn't pick the other teacher that was in the store. She picked the rock and roll metal teacher like mine. And she went in and she says, and he goes, what do you like? And she says, Van Morrison. And he goes, oh, cool. Here's When the Children Cry by White Lion. And my wife hated that. And so she forced herself to play White Lion. And then after that, she learned a Boston song. And then after that, she learned something else. And then she basically quit guitar because she did not enjoy playing any of that stuff. So the moral of that story, the lesson to be learned was not it's important to pick a good teacher, because it is. Because that shows you. Obviously, the teacher is good. He's a good teacher. By the way, that teacher is now the guitar player for a Great White. But the important part of the story is that it's important, like when you teach, to pay attention to the student. Because obviously the mistake he made was he was pushing the square peg through the round hole. He was basically trying to get her to he should have, a good teacher now, I realize, and he was younger. He was a younger teacher at that time, right? He's more not the tenured person he is today, and we all learn a lot better now because of the internet. The right answer should have been, you know who you would probably like is Ray next door. Why don't you go learn some Van Morrison from Ray? You know what I mean? And so again, that's what you learn. You learn lessons. So that's my wife. So that's why she doesn't play guitar. So, all right. And some 3R said, and hopefully you learn some Van Morrison songs. Yeah, of course. Again, obviously, like I said, we've known each other a long time. We have a lot of the same interests. She likes John Denver, Van Morrison. Funny enough, you could say that she likes the, calmer music than I do, but I'm the one that dragged her to a Barry Manilow concert, so it's kind of weird sometimes. Max says, these are fun comments, so I hope you guys enjoy the comments. Max says, I got Van Morrison but wanted Van Halen. Well, again, that's the funny thing, right? It's a funny thing. It's know your gear. It's know your student. It's about not saying, okay, I can teach. Is this the right fit? Is this the right piece of gear for me? Is this the right music for me? You know what I mean? It's the world is a beautiful giant box of every color of crayon. And by the way, before we go into this, I get any torture of this. I say Cran. It's a thing. Okay. My mother said Cran. My friends say Cran. We've had this argument in fights. I know it's crayon. I'm going to say Cran. If you're out there and you know what I mean when I say Cran, more power to you. But I know the right word is crayon. Anyways, the world is a beautiful giant box of crayons. I'm sorry. Sometimes you're brought up. You're told to say things a certain way. Some people say britches. Some people say pants. I say crayons. Anyways. All right. The Harax Initiative says, hey, Phil, what's up? Nothing much. What's up with you? All right. So I'm going to hit some questions real quick since I've been jumping around. The next question comes from Chris. Chris says, Guitar Center is lame. All right. You could just choose never to talk about them again here. They are lame, but let me put it to you this way. Here's a scary thought. Let me put it to you in a very scary thought in the idea that you think they're lame. Because I'm definitely thinking about this. This is important. I told you that 2 years ago when Gibson filed bankruptcy and they reorganized, I said in those podcasts, I think they'll reorganize, shed the debt, be very cash positive because they have because they've shedded off all the negative stuff and they'll literally start buying companies. Well, look at Guitar Center. They just filed bankruptcy. The Guitar Center, I don't know about you guys. I want to just tell you on a moral thing. I'm still struggling with this and I try not to be negative. I told you today's going to be a fun video, but I got to tell you, it's really weird to read an article. I didn't watch it. Read an article at Guitar World where it talked about record years in sales and the Guitar Center saw triple-digit growth in 2020 and they literally filed bankruptcy the same year. It's a really weird thing to watch that happen. So it's not that Guitar Center filed bankruptcy. We thought that was going to happen, but it's weird for them to boast that they had triple-digit growth in the same breath of, hey, we're filing bankruptcy on, right? But anyways, the important part of that story is this. Guitar Center has filed bankruptcy. It's over now. They're reorganized. And now you have to understand, now they're the big giant music store that doesn't have all that debt. They had hundreds of millions of dollars infused into them now. They've negotiated debt from $800 million down to $600 million. So what I'm saying is Guitar Center's lame, but you understand Guitar Center is going to soon be in a position like how Kmart bought Sears and Craftsman, where Guitar Center, that you think Gibson buying Mesa Boogie was shocking. That's why maybe I'm not reacting to it the way everybody thinks. I'm not going to be shocked if I hear Guitar Center buys, Paul Reed Smith. You know what I mean? Or Guitar Center buys, Schecter and, you know what I mean? Like I said, you understand these companies it's going to have some capital soon to go, hey, what should we buy with this newfound awesome money? So if you think Guitar Center's lame, I hate to give you bad news. I think they're going to grow. So Sean Brooks says Guitar Center with growth and filed bankruptcy means their business model failed. Yeah, we know their business model failed, but the problem is that they still exist, and they're going to, like I said, they're going to be cash positive soon. That's basically what my guess. Again, these are my guesses, but man, I've been batting a really good average on this stuff lately. Okay, Alan, I'm trying to get... Oh, okay, sorry. You guys are talking to each other. I don't have to answer. Okay. And a lot of you guys... I'm going to get back on this. A lot of you guys are talking about lessons, guitar lessons, having similar experiences with the wrong teachers. Yeah, it's important. That's why I've said this before, when it comes to doing your lessons, it's important that you find the right teacher. And sometimes it's tough because, look, teachers are people, and people need to eat. And people, so when you go to a teacher and you say, like my wife, hey, you like Van Morrison? And they're like, oh yeah, here's Motley Crue. You know what I mean? It's not, he needs a lesson. He needs a student. So that's why I said, you have to do your research. Find the right teacher for you. Find the right thing for you. And when it's not working, when a teacher is not working for you, and right? It's nothing wrong. I don't want to slam teachers. Teachers, that's a hard job. I've taught. I've owned a lesson academy that's taught hundreds of students for over a decade. It's a hard gig on both directions, but ultimately, no matter how hard it is, the student is the most important thing. It's everything. It's literally the product. It's like making any product. The product is the most important thing. If you make food, it's the most important thing. If you make a pedal, it's the most important thing. It's the product. If you teach, your product is students, and students are the most important thing. If you have good students, you have a good business. If you have bad students, you have a bad business. So I understand. That's why that's why I'm putting onus on you guys to say, hey, don't always think like, oh, I'm not learning this stuff and I don't know what's wrong. I'm not saying blame the teacher, but be open-minded to try different teachers, different types of lessons, different types of way of learning. There's a lot of information out there. Cirrus says, my favorite guitar salesman was a teacher that filled in when the sales dude was on break. Yeah, you know what? I agree. Because you know why? Because he wasn't a salesman. That's the best salesman, is not a salesman. It's because he's not thinking about the bottom line, right? Remember when I talked about the quality of things and how the product is? That is a teacher that's trying to sell, or a teacher that is helping you in a store that's not a salesperson, isn't thinking about anything else other than your needs. I'm not saying salesmen don't think about anything besides their needs, but it has to factor in. You know what I mean? You'd be insane to not think that. Sean says, I'd want to see you with the virtual captain meets. Oh, yeah, the captain. Look, man, I would have him on my channel in a minute. But it's just not, there's big asks and then there's really big asks, you know what I mean? And so, the problem is it's not a celebrity thing. I'm sure he's busy as hell. And so getting outside of his arena is tough. And I'm not big enough to be on their arena. That's not how it works. Okay, so let's go. Okay, hold on. I know I just went kind of quiet. All right, next question. Robert says, hey, Phil, I love the channel. I bought a new OM21 from Musician's Friend. That's a great guitar. Which was shipped from a Guitar Center store. It seems to be at best a floor model or return. Lots of scratches. I like the sound, but I'd be concerned. Yeah, that happened to Tone King. So I'll put a reference to his video. He did a video where he bought 2 Randall 1-watt amps from the Musician's Friend deal of the day. And then he got a call from a rep at Guitar Center saying, hey, I have 1 open box and 1 returned item, and I can send them both to you. And he's like, why are you calling me? He's like, I didn't buy them from Guitar Center. I bought them from Musician's Friend. And we know Musician's Friend is owned by Guitar Center, but I think there's a change, okay? And again, I don't work at Guitar Center Musician's Friend. And so if you do work at Guitar Center Musician's Friend and you're watching this channel, if you want to comment on this, it would really help the community. And again, I don't think it would hurt your, the business. I wouldn't ever ask you to do anything that would jeopardize your job or hurt, the business that pays you. But I think what we're seeing is because of the bankruptcy, what I think we're seeing is Guitar Center and Musician's Friend kind of interlocking and working together where they weren't working before. Because it used to be, if you're a musician's customer, like I've been a Musician's Friend customer for years, used to talk to them. They were like, we don't even talk to Guitar Center. We don't even know Guitar Center exists, like as employees. And now all of a sudden there's all this, like you said, integration. To me, this is a slippery, crazy, shady slope of hell. The idea that I could buy something off Musician's Friend brand new, thinking I'm getting shipped a brand new, fresh, unboxed or unopened box product, and I'm getting a store display model from Guitar Center is insane. So to answer your question, you should send it right the hell back. The reason is because not only because it could be, it's a store demo model and you didn't pay for that, you paid for new in box, but look, where a Guitar Center, you could go buy one at Guitar Center off the wall if you wanted to. You bought it from Musician's Friend because you want it new in box. You want a fresh product. If you like the guitar, then maybe you should call Musician's Friend, tell them your concerns, and give them an opportunity to fix it. Like I've always said, always give a business the opportunity to fix things. I think that's fair. It's not only good for them to fix things because that's how they learn, but also it's good for you because you'll end up ahead. You'll go, okay, they'll give you a discount. You'll get a little bit of discount because that's really what it is. You shouldn't pay full price for something your expectation was not met. You wanted a brand new guitar in box. You've now received a scratched up floor model. If what I'm saying doesn't make sense, in other words, you're unhappy because it's scratched up, send the damn thing back. Send it back. Ask for it, call them up, say, hey, look, this is not what I ordered. This is not what was promised to me. Right? This wasn't disclosed. You don't even have to say all that. Just say, this guitar is scratched up. I want a return label. And they'll send you a return label and send it back. No questions asked, 30 days policy or whatever, 45 days. So, but I would give them feedback, so hopefully they can use that. But yeah, I keep hearing about this. So both ways. Both ways. Not only are you buying things from Musician's Friend where they're literally sending stuff. So, I just experienced this recently too, where Musician's Friends also labeling stuff as open box or B stock, but it's not. It's brand new. So they're just trying to not have to, they want to discount it below the minimum advertised pricing policies. But mostly what I'm seeing is what you're seeing is Musician's Friends listing things as brand new, but then shipping you used product from Guitar Center stores. And I say used because it's been used. It's been played. It may be under warranty, but it's been demoed. And in your case, it's got scratches on it. You said, and lots of scratches, right? Imagine, if you will, and then I'll stop beating this dead horse. Imagine you went on Target.com and bought a pot and pan set, and it showed up, and there was a little bit of egg residue on one of the pans, and the other pan had a scratch. You would be like, did somebody make food in my brand new pans? You would probably have a heart attack, right? Now, I understand there's a health concern to that versus this guitar, but again, it falls in the same line. It's not what was promised. It sounds insane. I don't understand it. And so Robert, if you told me the story and I hadn't heard already multiple versions of this exact same story, I would actually probably have a different response for you. I'd probably tell you like, I don't know if that's what happened. Are you sure that's what happened? Because it sounds so insane. But that's it. You should demand better. You deserve it. Robert, you're a good guy. You deserve better. How about that? We'll reaffirm Robert. Robert, you deserve a brand new OM21 because that's an amazing acoustic guitar. And you should have a great experience because it's your hard ass earned money that you gave to a business. Let that business give you what you deserve. Grumpy Mike Guitar. What's up, Grumpy Mike? He says a tip of the hat and something for the tip jar. Hope you're enjoying the non-blast furnace months of Arizona. I am, by the way. And why not? Yeah, no, this is the time to live here. It's great. I think our highs are like 65, 70. It's great. And the lows are probably 40 in the middle of the night when you're asleep. It doesn't matter. Jay Boogikes, I'm going to say Jay, said Seymour Duncan slash pickups have long legs, fit in a Gibson, not Fender, at least mine, shortened legs in bend. Okay, so he's wanting to know. So before I get to the second part of this, what he's basically talking about, if you don't know, is on humbucker pickups, especially pickups like PAFs, slashes, there's two different length legs. There's short legs, which will go into like your Charvels, PRSs, Ibanez's, most other guitars, and long legs that will go into like a Gibson guitar. And so obviously it's tough because if you put the long legs in a guitar that has a shallow route, they won't go in there deep enough. So he's saying he's got slash pickups and they have long legs, and obviously he doesn't have a Les Paul or something he's trying to put it in. So he wants to know if should he cut and shorten the legs or should he bend them, re-drill them. He said he just put an El Nico 2 Pros in with shorter legs. Look, I wouldn't modify those pickups at this point. I know it sucks. You can mod them. You can do exactly that. I wouldn't bend them. It's not going to work. I tried it a long time ago, right? Because you try to go like, how am I going to do this without actually having to remake the legs on this pickup? You can take the pickup apart and redo all this stuff. Again, it's not worth it. At this point, if you bought them brand new and you can return them, I would do that. If you can't return them, you just got to sell them. And then what's great about this is if you sell them used, you should be able to find the ones you need used for the same price. Or you can even reach out on forums like Craigslist even, but all kinds of forums and say, hey, I have these long leg ones. Does anyone have some short legs that would like to trade me? Get lucky sometimes with that. Modding them is a holy hell. I definitely don't recommend, which is what some people usually do a lot, is router your guitar, because that's what a lot of people do. And when you pull apart some guitars and you see like they routed for the longer legs, it's great. I mean, it works, but I wouldn't recommend it because again, you're permanently modding the guitar. It just happens, but there's not a whole lot you can do. But the importance of that question is, it's a good reminder to everybody that when you're ordering pickups, there's two kinds of leg lengths on pickups. And not all pickups. That's why. So that's what happens to you guys sometimes. You guys will order pickups that notoriously don't have long legs because they don't make every pickup in long legs. So you'll order pickup, and then one day you buy a PAF or you buy some other kind of pickup like these Seymour Duncan slashes, and then you get the long legs. And you're like, what the hell is this? So be aware of that. There are two different legs. Sean says you only have to route with a thick drill bit for about 2 seconds. Right. The routing is not the problem. It's even though you're not going to see the work, anytime you take and you start taking material away from guitar, I personally feel, just my opinion, if I router a guitar, if I change guitars physically, even if a person doesn't see it, I disclose that if I sell it. And once you disclose that, you're just killing yourself. You're like, hey, this guitar's been modded. As soon as you say a guitar's been modded permanently, and it's not, you're always going to kill it. So, and, so it's up to you. Sierra says, am I the only one who never sells a guitar? Yes. If you feel like you're very unique, it's because you are. Yeah. All right. Okay, let's go back to another question. Okay, we have Arthur Jet. Arthur Jet says, why don't budget guitar companies put top-end pots caps in their guitars? Charging an extra $10 would cover the expense and sell more guitars. No, he's no is the question mark. Is that true? In my experience, that would actually not be intuitive. Here's what's intuitive for guitar manufacturers. So imagine this. If You skimp where customers can't see. That's the ethics out there. That's the logic, right? Think about all products. It has nothing to do with guitars, right? When you get a product, think about when you get duped, right? You buy a product, you think it's the real deal, and then you find out it's crap. It's always something you couldn't see, right? It's like, I always like this. It's a great analogy. It's awesome. It works for me. It's like, remember when you used to want a cool stereo system and they had the big ports at the bottom and you had the woofer in your tweeter, and then you bought that cheap one and then you found out the ports were like fake. Right. They made there's a hole and you put your hand in there and it was a piece of plastic and it stopped about 2 inches in because it didn't actually they didn't even put a port because their speakers can't generate any bass. So why even put a port? It was made to look like a real speaker, but it was generic. And that's just one, scenario. So what I'm saying is no, most companies, think of this, high-end companies want to make all the stuff you can't see cheap. Cheap companies want to make all the stuff you can't see cheap. No one wants to fix anything up. That's why I've said this before. When people say, when guitar players say, I tried this guitar, it was very inexpensive, and look, the finish looks good, and they focus on all the aesthetics. I'm like, right, well, that's where the company focused. They make the guitar look right, and then they skimped on everything else, and that's where they save the money. So that's why it's always scary when you see a guitar that has obvious things visually wrong with it, because you're like, okay, this is the crap you see, and they didn't care about that. What do you think they thought about the stuff you can't see? There's no way. Right? So there you go. Okay, so next question is Kevin. Kevin says, hey there, Phil. He says, hey there, Phil. Of all the Friedman amps you've tried, which amp had the best clean tone in your opinion? So the problem I have with that question is that is where I've been the most problematic with Friedman amps. So I think it's very obvious that I have a great love for Friedman amps. I think he has some of the best overdrive tones out there. I think even Marshall could learn a thing from the sounds that I get out of the Friedman amps. And I love my Marshalls, but I mean the Friedmans, I think they sound fantastic. They're everything you want. They're not. But the cleans, I'm never in love with the cleans. But here's the problem. I haven't tried every Friedman amp yet. And at this point, the only Friedman amps I haven't really tried, intimately, like I said, I've plugged in at an NAMM show or at a store or even at the Friedman factory, but I sometimes that doesn't mean I know anything. I always tell people, if I plug into an amp in a guitar center and I play it for 5 minutes, I have no idea until you get it home and you hear it with your guitar, your rig, your stuff. So that being said, I've not found a Friedman amp that's clean that I like yet. I've heard the Buxom is a great clean amp. Of the small amps, I've owned all 4 small amps. Let me tell you, the Runt and the JJ are basically the same amp, but the JJ's got a hotter gain. Okay, so I like the JJ better than the Runt because I can use the higher gain, and then if I want, I turn it back. So it's not that it's the Runt's bad. It's just if I was going to buy one now, knowing everything I know about the 4 amps I've tried, I'd buy the JJ every time over the Runt. Then the Pink Taco or the PT20, I didn't love it cleaned up. That's where I thought it was weak. It's just not my sound I was looking for. The Dirty Shirley is the closest I can get to a decent clean. Now, when I played the Twin Sister, the clean on that was okay, but the clean on the Twin Sister was not as good as my Plexi, my 1987. I thought my Plexi clean is amazing. Right? The gain on that's great, but I mean the clean is just thick and beautiful and amazing. So yeah. So to answer your question, I haven't tried. I think if the thing I want to get into next is maybe hit the Small Box 50 in an intimate environment and try that for a couple weeks and see maybe if I can. I have a couple friends that have one, and then we talked about maybe loaning me one. So I'd like to see if that happens. Because I think that's what it is. I think with Friedman, if I get it with a little bit higher wattage amps, I can get the cleans to get a little better. So there you go. And again, but all of them are fine. The cleans are fine. I just, like I said, you asked me of all the Friedmans, which one had the best clean. None of them had any clean that I think out of the best, I think of the small heads, if you want the best clean, it would be, like I said, the JJ or the Runt because they're the same, but I just still don't love that clean. And the 50 watt Runt, same thing. Clean was okay. Still not in love with it, but it was good. Friedman is a gain amp company. They make great gain amps. That's without a doubt. The cleans are, I think, something they work on and they do, but I don't think it's where they focus their energy because, again, it's like, this is what they do. Davis says, I like the clean out of the Friedman small box. I have a creepy theory that the small box is going to have the clean that I think I like the most. So, yeah, we'll see. Right now, I think I've told you this. I really like that Engel head, the Engel Fireball 25. So I really like that. But I was playing that forever, and now I'm still using that, but I'm using Friedman pedals in front of my Marshall amp again. So it's like I'm getting the Marshall clean and the Friedman overdrives, which then makes me want another Friedman amp. It's kind of funny. Brian says, you get 3 cleans on the Runt and the JJ, dark, bright, and brighter via switch. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know if I'd say it's 3 cleans, but I understand where you're going with that. That's really cool. Yeah. I think when I used the Runt and the JJ, the way I worked for me was in a bedroom, the bright was just harsh and horrible. And so I needed it in the darkest mode in the bedroom, which wasn't my favorite setting. But whenever I played out with friends, I always had it in the brighter setting for clean. It's because it cut and it sounded great. In fact, that's kind of also another problem with Friedman amps. Okay. Friedman amps are like pro-grade amps. In other words, they're really made for people who are going to be playing out and making music. So sometimes when you're trying to make them a bedroom player amp, they work better than Marshalls, for God's sakes, but still that's their shortcoming. Because I mean, they're a legit company. They legitimately build rock solid amps. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's quality gear. Hey, you know what? I think I saw Michael. Oh, Michael here. It says Runt 50 has a nicer clean than the Runt 20. Yeah, well, mainly because it has the EQ, right? You have a 2-band EQ on that. A little more control on the Runt 50. I agreed. I thought the 2-band EQ helped tremendously. Because again, I think that's where the shortcoming of the Runt and the JJ is like Brian was pointing out. You get a volume knob, you get the presence control. So because that's a master control of the amp. So on your Runt and JJs for clean, you get one volume, you get a 3-way switch that's just basically bright, super bright, and then kind of darker. And then you get and I'm going by my ear. I don't know if that's what they call it. And then you get the presence control. But like I said, I told you it was a very eye-opening experience when I played the Twisted Sister. When I played the Twin Sister, it really made me not love my Dirty Shirley Mini because it was just a massively different amp in the fact that I like the Dirty Shirley Mini and I think I still like it, but the Twin Sister was just so much nicer. So much nicer. So, okay. Hold on. Alexander? I'm hoping saying it's like Alexander. Alexander says, what do I think? What is the future of music gear in post-COVID world? Any trends you expecting to see? Yeah, again, we're throwing fun guesses out, right? So here's my fun guess for what I think the future of gear post-COVID is. What I think is take everything that happened before COVID, all the trends you see, and ramped it up to 10. So if you think, better yet, you asked me. So let me tell you what I think. Pre-COVID, I think software, modeling units, small rigs, right? Virtual rigs, in other words, not taking big amplifiers, was dominating and winning by the second. And I literally think COVID's going to supercharge that. I think if you thought before artists weren't going to bring big rigs with them on tour, they're definitely post-COVID not going to do that. It's going to be, because here's why. Think about what COVID's done just at what we've seen. Because we don't know the future. We don't know. But that's what we've seen. We've seen shipping rates double and triple. Well, pre-COVID, what were musicians complaining about? Shipping rates. They were flat out doing, fly date gigs, right? They were doing fly rigs, right? We all know what a fly rig is, like a mini pedal board that goes in the gig bag. They were using fly rigs because of the fact that it was already expensive before COVID to ship stuff. Now increase the shipping rates and then add all the regulations that are going to come with this stuff. Now when shipping and stuff happens and getting in and out of countries and ports and all that stuff. So I think that's going to make all of that stuff speed up a little bit even more. So I think you're going to see musicians really focus that stuff. So, and then think about all the musicians now creating music at home and how that's going to then also, change things. So I think that's what you're going to see. Okay. I also think you're going to see guitar players even take less guitars on tour. So I think what's going to happen is how I don't want to say dependable, but maybe that's the word. How I guess I'm going to say dependable, right? Basically how dependable guitar is going to really matter, because you're going to see, again, we're not talking about John Mayer and big acts where they bring semis of stuff wherever they go. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about literally the Pete Thorns, the Phil X's, the touring musicians, the Josh Smith, the people that are out there making music and touring. They're literally going to have to go, okay, I can only bring 2 guitars or 1 guitar. I can only bring, They're going to consolidate their rigs. And I think that's what we're going to see post-COVID. All the stuff we saw before, just again, it's going to hyper speed it up. It's going to make it even bigger, and it's going to, it's going to make it more of a problem for them. So I think that's what you're going to see. Plus, not to mention, think about it this way. Think about it like a restaurant or anybody else. What are they going to do, musicians, if when they do go to play at the pavilion, if the pavilion tells everybody that there's only half the people there? Well, half the people's half the money. I mean, even if they upcharge everybody, which they will, still not going to make up the difference. No one's expecting to pay double, right? So if there's a 30-40% bump in what you pay, there's still a 20-30% cut in what the band's going to receive. So again, they're going to have to cut costs. And I think that's where the focus is going to be. So there you go. Not to mention, here's the other problem. Things I don't have any idea. Remember, I have no idea about this stuff. I don't tour for a living, okay? So if there's somebody out there that's in the touring world that can put in the comments, they're going to be more versed in this than me. But you asked me what my guesses were. The other thing that's going to happen is there's backline companies, and that's what I've been thinking about right now. There's a lot of backline companies, and I actually have heard a couple backline companies are getting into other businesses, of course. And of course, a lot of them sold that stuff off. If you don't know what a backline company is, that's a company that provides amps, and all kinds of gear, drums, all kinds of things for the bands. So when bands sometimes, fly in and do a fly date or come in, they can rent gear. Well, all these bands not playing out, those backline companies have been getting their ass handed to them because they're not renting any gear. That's what they do. Think about this. If you rent stuff for a living, there's nobody renting it. So you're going to see, again, bands can't rely on the backlines if that's possible, right? So they go to tour and there's no backline. The venue's paying less because there's less people can physically be in the venue. Right. I mean, and then let's not even talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that the venues, the ticketing agencies are flat out telling people you can't go see the shows if you don't have if you don't get the virus, the shot, right? The vaccine. I don't know why I had trouble with vaccine. If you don't get the virus, you can't go. Well, not everybody's going to get the vaccine. We already know, right? There, it doesn't take a rock science to watch the news and see that some people are just not going to take vaccines. So I'm not here to talk about the political part of that. I'm just saying, so those are people that can't go to shows or won't go. And so again, now you have, you have that problem. So I think that's that's going to affect the gear that they use. Dead Fish says weddings are coming back for bands too. Right. Again, there's all kinds of things that will come back, but we're not talking about, remember, everything that gets pushed back, some of it's going to come back, but some of it's not. So it's hard to predict a bounce back when not everything's planned to bounce back. So, and then John says he got a great price, from a generator from a backline company. I'm sure it's because, again, the backline companies are, like I said, not making as much. I have a buddy who works for a backline company, and his company focused on doing other things, and then they sold off some of the backline stuff they weren't using. Kevin wants to know, hey, Phil, since I love the deal, Okay, he's saying him. He says, since I love the deal and they're $20, he's talking about the Behringer pedals. What Behringer pedals are the best? That's a good question. Let me look. I'm going to go look right now. To be honest with you, I'm kind of want to do this. I know this is like the worst thing to do on the show right now, but I am curious myself because I looked long enough to get the link, and because I read the thing, and I noticed, and I told you, I was thinking about buying one. Why? Because the same reason I bought a Behringer attenuator, since you guys hate it when I say attenuator. Look, I'm my know your gear philosophy is not that you know your gear. That's dumb. What an asshole thing to say. I know everything. It's that you should learn to know your stuff, right? Learn your stuff. So every time I talk about stuff and I go, oh, I don't like that, and you guys go, oh, it's great. That's why I buy it and I try it again, it's because again, I try to stay open-minded. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Trust me, I want to love a $20 pedal like you have no idea. It's not even 20. They're 19 even. Free shipping. It's not even $20. It's crazy. All right, I'll tell you what. I'll make you a deal. Okay? Okay, here's what it is. Who asked the question? I'm sorry. Kevin, here's the answer. I'm gonna pick one right now. Okay, I'm going to share it with you guys. I'll pick one. I don't want to spend too much time on this, so I'm not going to buy it right now. I'm going to live on the show. Maybe I should, because then if they sell out, I can't get it. But I'll buy one too. Well, I'll buy a Behringer pedal. So whatever I tell you, I'll buy that pedal. Let me share. Hey, look, you can see with me. Okay, so here's the pedals. And I have no idea which ones they even make. But $19 pedals are it's just stupid how, oh, you know what? Okay, so a noise reducer pedal, Behringer pedals I've experienced have been a little noisy. So that's one of the things I don't like about them. The circuit, is not, makes a little bit of noise. So I don't know how good the noise suppressor is, but man, if you ever wanted to do a noise, it says noise reducer, a noise suppressor pedal, they sometimes are worth their weight in gold, but they suck because you don't use them all the time, especially if you're not a high gain guy. So having one around for $19, I'm not going to get one because I have a Boss and I have an ISP one. But if I didn't, that was one I would think about. For $19 to have that in your bag ready for to go could be a lifesaver. I'm a sucker for vintage delay, especially at that price. There's the super fuzz. I'm not really interested in a fuzz pedal that's $19. Fuzz pedals can be so bad if they're not good. So I'm a little scared of that. And I didn't watch Josh Scott video. So you guys know I would watch his video where he talks about which one of these he loves. Another great one, graphic equalizer. I love my GE7, swear by it. So again, if I didn't have one, I would definitely consider that one for sure. I have no desire to have their ultra metal pedal. I can't imagine. Compressor, another one. Again, I don't like cheap compressors, but again, a lot of people want to try a compressor, and this is like the best way I could see you can try it for $19. Digital reverb. See, digital reverb, I was like, oh, but it's $29. I don't want to buy that one. Heavy metal, bass limiter. What else? Tube amp modeler. What the hell? I didn't even know that existed. Digital multi-effects. Look at that. It's $30 though. Ultra Octaver. That's another good one. What would I pick? Ultra Tremolo. Okay. Ultra Vibrato. I like the tremolo better. For me. Tube overdrive. Vintage tube overdrive. You know what? That'd be a cool one too. All right. Which one would I pick? I'd probably pick vintage delay. Just because I always can try another delay pedal. It's kind of cool. I kind of feel like that's the safe bet answer to go with. So I think I'll go with vintage delay until let me see if I don't find another one right now. Bass graphic equalizer is pretty cool. Yeah, I don't need another noise suppressor. I really like my EQ pedal, although another EQ pedal would be nice. I think I'm going to go with the vintage delay. And here's why. Let me give you the reason why. So a vintage delay is the one. Is it in stock? Cool. It's in stock. Let me go back to this. Okay. Why would I pick the vintage delay? Because old delays sometimes don't sound great. So if the pedal is not amazing, it will actually sound right. Does it make sense? Like you don't want an old vintage delay, right? To be all crisp and clean and perfect. So it might be in Jar Jar says build your typical rig in Behringer. Is that a good video? Right? If I buy like I have my pedal board I'm looking at right now, right? So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a looper on there, and the Behringer doesn't make that, I don't think. Yeah, if I buy, right, what's that? $100? All right, I'll do it. So that's what I'll do. I'll cop out, and I like your idea. Good idea. Thank you. I'm gonna do exactly that. I'm gonna buy in jar. I'm gonna buy my current rig right now in the Behringer pedals. So there you go. All right. And then Steve Meadows, I'm sure it's to clarify what we were talking about earlier tonight when we were talking about the best PAF pickups. He said Fralin over Lawler ? No, I'm gonna say equal. I have Lawrence was suggesting Lawler. I like Lawler. I have Fralins, but I've installed and played Lawlers many times, and I can't say that I picked Fralin over Lawler. I just picked Fralins and I like them, but I don't care which one. So if you're asking me which one would I pick, I would pick whichever one's 50 cents cheaper, because I think they're on par for each other. And again, that's just my opinion. Somebody's gonna be like Lawler's better, Fralin's better, but I mean I like them both. Right? If you offered me a free set of each right now, like I could pick either one, I would just literally roll the dice and just whichever one. Right? Actually, I'd probably pick Lawler because I have Fralins and I want to, I'd just I'll have a set of Lawlers too. But realistically, if I can only have one. Brian says it's fun spending Phil's money. Yeah, you know what I mean? It was cool. Maybe it'll be a cool video. And I'll learn a lot, because either I'll hate it and you guys will hear about that, or I'll like it and I'll be like, I don't know. What do I know? Buying nice stuff doesn't even matter. And maybe, like I said, Josh Scott thought those pedals were great. Okay. Let's go. Okay. Let's go to, let me button up the last few questions, because we've already over 2 hours, which has been the norm lately. Thank you guys. You know what? I know on the replays I get to hear 2 hours. Who could sit through this? And I'm like, I don't know. Apparently us. I'm glad that I have you guys to hang out with me for this. This is great. I'd go 6 hours if I thought the internet could take it, but it would explode. Okay. Let's see. Jared says, hey, my budget PAF is, so he's talking about his budget. His budget for PAFs is $200, $300. Are the DiMarzio PF 36 anniversaries worth it, or should I spend the money for Fralin and Lawler? I like both those, okay? I do. I have PAF 36 anniversaries. I literally have them. I have them put in guitars. I'm literally have a guitar downstairs, one of my guitars I'm hoping to get to on Sunday, where I'm taking out some bare knuckles and I'm putting in a PAF 36 anniversary in the neck. And I'm putting another pickup in the bridge, which is a DiMarzio that I like, the set. And so to answer your question, I can't say I like the PFs as much as the Fralin Lawlers, because they're different. I know it sounds funny because they're the same pickup. If budget is even a consideration, if you get PF 36 anniversaries, I don't think you'll be missing it. Every amazing rock star has used a DiMarzio PF in a guitar and made a great album with it. So it's obviously a great pickup. It can be used, and I like them. So if it's a cost issue, go with those. I don't think paying the extra Fralin Lawler. Keep in mind, part of my thing with the Wiz pickups and the Fralins and all this stuff is I'm just curious by nature, and I want to try everything. And of course, when you try nice stuff, you go, oh, this is really nice. Like this Behringer thing we're about to do. I pick nice stuff, and I try stuff, and I go, this is what I like, but I can't actually say like the lower price stuff is bad. It's just, maybe this stuff's a little better. I think everything's just a little better, a little, sometimes. So go with PAFs. The Panda says the secret to happy marriage. What's hers is hers. What's his is hers. Yes. I'm going to curse. So I'm going to warn you right now. My favorite thing when it comes to marriage, I can make I can make my wife laugh every time I say this. I tell my close friends this, so I'm going to share this, but I don't have a way to tell you without cursing. My favorite thing to tell my friends and my wife is, here's what, if you want to be if you're a husband and you want to really understand the world you live in, just remember this. Your wife has stuff and you have shit. It's your shit and her stuff. Your wife will say, get your shit out of here and pick up my stuff. That's how you know where you are in the standing of the marriage. So it's your shit and her stuff. That's a true story, by the way. My wife did that to me one day, and it was 20 years ago probably. And she's like exactly that. Get your shit out of the car. And she's like, oh, grab my stuff. And I said, I understand how this is going to go from now on. So that's how I sum up marriage. All right. BottleBot. Jesus. BottleBot. Just want to say thanks. You're part of the reason I have the ability to completely rebuild a 2010 Jackson Kelly. Man, I'm glad. Like I said, I love hearing that stuff, and I thank you so much for that. It makes it a funny thing. Mikey Newman. Hey, Mikey. What's up? Mikey says, hey, Phil, I just saying hello. It's been a while. It has. That's why but I always watch the live shows. Man, thank you. Yeah, it has been a while. So yeah, it's good seeing your name, right? It's funny because it's like, as the channel goes over time, right? Kind of feels like we're old friends now. When I see somebody, I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? You know, to me, sometimes that's what I said. That's why I do the shirts. Like I said, every 100,000 subs, we do different shirts. It's a physical way to manifest this thing now, where I sometimes see your names and I go, oh, pre 100,000 subs, or oh, pre 10,000 subs. You know, right? It's crazy. But what's really crazy, not how big a channel can get or things like that. I mean, because obviously, you know, there's channels out there with millions of subs. It's great when you go, man, it started with like 5 of us. And now look at this. There's like 1,500 people we're on today or whatever. It's crazy, right? It's amazing. All right. Todd Rogers says, hello, Mr. Phil. Great show. Oh, Mandy. Oh, yeah. Good Manilow reference. That's awesome. I love Barry Manilow, by the way. You know, and Peter Cetera. I think I just lost 5 subscribers right now, but it's worth it because they're both amazing. All right. Grr1000 says, I've ordered a PRS Core Custom 24 Anniversary in charcoal from Casino Guitars. Love that channel, by the way. Those guys, I should do a shout out because they did a shout out on one of my videos. Great videos. If you haven't checked out Casino Guitars, I love it. 2 guys down to earth talking about guitars, willing to talk about, look, I love anyone who's not looking for the clickbait crazy, not trying to stir the pot. They just want to talk about things. And so when you want to talk about gear, the business, the things that we love, you got to understand some stuff is going to be taboo to talk about. And they go there. And that's why I appreciate it. You know what I mean? I appreciate them. So it says Baxter was great. Baxter was great to deal with. Next thing to buy, more lessons. Yes. Lessons will serve you better than that guitar will, my friend. I'll tell you that. And I don't even know how good you play. I don't care how good or bad you play. Lessons will always serve you better than pedals and amps and guitars. I love it when people put in comments like, you don't need another pedal, you need to practice. I'm like, well, that's the obvious thing. Did you need to point that out? Does somebody not know that? Does somebody watch? And if you are watching right now, let me clarify. Maybe we'll end towards this comment. If you're confused how this works, I'm sorry. Maybe I should explain. You have to practice. We all have to practice. We all have to work on our craft. And then as we're practicing work on our craft, we get to also talk about the things that make our craft, like the gear. But the playing is the most important thing. I don't say that all the time because I always thought that was the obvious thing, right? Like, you have to know how to play a chord before you buy an octave pedal. I'm just saying, right? Like, you know what I mean? You may not need a scale before you buy an EQ pedal. Just saying. Okay. Kevin says, hey, Phil, any experience with Sg guitars? I did do a Sg guitar review. Interested in getting one, but weird website. Super weird website. Yeah, absolutely. I worked at Guitar Center, can confirm, not the best place. Well, I have friends that worked at Guitar Center as well, and you know what's funny is there's a thing with Guitar Center, and maybe it'll change. Maybe the new regime of Guitar Center will be better. Who knows? But my friends that worked at Guitar Center, what I've learned is if they worked there 20 years ago, it was a great place, and they made a lot of money, and things were great. And if they worked there 10 years ago, it's been hell. As a whole, again, if you're working at Guitar Center right now and you're happy, I'm not here to judge you. Please don't flip out, right? Everything's cool, but apparently it used to be a lot better place to work. That's what I understand. Okay, Marshall DSL or Origin? DSL. The Origins are cheaper, but I'm going to tell you in the long run, you'll be happy you got the DSL. Why do I say that? One, the DSLs usually have more features, but two, the DSLs the DSLs have more features, but even though I think both are made in Vietnam, right, which is just just a price point thing. My experience with the Origins is there's a reason why they've been discounting them, right? So that's why you want to buy the Origin, because they're dirt cheap. Here's what I would tell you. Is that I want my $2. I want my $2 to sign on. Here's a suggestion. Before I would buy a new Origin on a deal, I would buy a used DSL. I think you'd be happier for it. That's my experience with it. A lot of people are mentioning the Origins sound like the Plexis, and that's kind of the thing, and the DSLs are more of the modern sound, Marshall. If that's your thing and you really want the older sound, I think the Origin will give you that tone, but I would rather have a DSL with a good Plexi pedal than the Origin. And again, I have friends that have the Origin. Robert Baker has an Origin. He loves his. The ones I played, it's not that I thought they were bad. I think the DSL is a better product. Physically, I think it's built better. It's a better design. Plus, you got to understand the DSL. Look at this is what the DSL has going for it. It's a clone of an already great product. So it was something that they made, designed, test, proved, toured with. I mean, people played JCM 2000s for years, toured with them, and then all Marshall had to do was go, okay, let's take that and make it overseas and dirt cheap. And they did that, and that's where DSL comes from. So I think the Origin was more of like okay, let's see what we can do to hit a price point, and they did that. And it's not a tried and true product. So that's why I pick it over the other one. Pathamond Malmahay says, hey, Phil, I play Fender guitars through Fender Hot Rod DeVille. Am I a pleb? I don't know what that means. It's probably a word, some kind of word on the internet that I'll Google later, and it'll be like, oh, yeah. It says also the new American troublemaker Tele is the best guitar I've owned. Oh, cool. Good to know. I don't need to buy another Tele right now, but I saw it. It's cool. So I don't know what I'm a pleb means, so I can't reference it. But no, playing a Fender guitar through a Hot Rod DeVille is cool as hell. That's what it is. The Hot Rod DeVille and the Hot Rod Deluxe, fantastic amplifiers. Everyone I know in this industry that makes high-end product has a DeVille or a Deluxe laying around because it's such a universally good amp to do good things. The problem with the DeVille and the Deluxe is it gets shamed because it's not a great amplifier. Like, what a stupid logic is that, right? It's like, oh, yeah, the distortion's okay, and then this is this. They always have a reeds, right? But who cares? It's not trying to be a great amp. It's trying to be a good amp, and it is a good amp. So no, it's a good amp, and everybody uses them for backline all the time too. I don't know what that means. Let's see. Hold on a second. Hold on. Some of you guys are. I'm reading. Hold on. Oh, okay. So a pleb. Somebody, thank you guys for putting in the comments. Somebody said a pleb is a plebeian, which is or related to common people. So now I understand. Cool. So see, learn a new word every day. So the question is he a common person for using a Fender through a DeVille amp or Deluxe amp? No, you're a musician. It's good. It's good product. It's like I said, it's good product. The reason I always have a hot spot, I want to say, for the DeVille and Deluxe. And here's why. Obviously I was a Fender dealer for many, many years, and you sell lots of those amps. And when you sell those amps, musicians come and play them. They love them, and they always love them. And then they gig with them for a little while, and then they always go, okay, I'm going to trade it and get something else. And then they spend all hell and back trying to find an amp that's expensive that sounds and does what that amp does. And the main reason they're going through this hell is because exactly what Path Mamalmahe is saying is that basically, hey, am I a commoner, right? Is this like pedestrian? But see, that's why I don't know that word you're using, because I would use the word pedestrian, right, is a common thing. So, no, look, there's nothing wrong with that. To me, deep down, it's always funny to me when people shame people for low quality gear, whatever, a deluxe or whatever, a cheap thing. Yet the same people shame people for being pretentious. It's weird. It's like you have to, as a musician, you have to hit this crazy, unobtainable sweet spot of, I'm not a pretentious ass and I'm not poor. What? It's like this, right? Like, what piece of gear doesn't make me look like a douche or like a noob? How do I figure this out? Right? And I understand your point. And that's why it's a hot spot for me. Because you know why? Because I read your question and I identify with it. Because I'm like, look, we're all there. We're all trying to be there. Look, but the ultimate thing is this. Part of the problem when you buy a piece of gear and you play music and you have people telling you crap, and here's what you need to really remember. If other musicians are telling you that your gear is not right, it's cheap, or it's not good, or it's common, you don't need new gear. You need new friends. Get rid of those assholes. Because you know why? Like I've said, I love playing gear and collecting gear. You see on my channel, I enjoy doing a video of a Glarry as much as I do a $3,000 PRS. There's some kind of joy for me in all this. And I think at heart, I think everybody should have that mentality. And let me tell you, I didn't get there. I would love to be like, oh, well, that's just how I'm wired. It's not. I had all this insecurity for years, and I busted my ass getting the best gear I could. And then one day I just woke up and I'm like, I don't know. I was happy when I just had my Mexican Strat and my DeVille. All right. So my dogs are losing their mind. All right. A Very Dead Horse said, no more super chats after Todd, because again, we're at 2 hours and a half and I gotta end up. So A Very Dead Horse says, I just got an incredible new Gibson 61 Sg with flame mahogany body. Oh, that's cool. It needs a trim. Can't decide between the Callahan modded Bigsby Vibromate or the less trim. I want the best performance and looks and thoughts. Out of those bridges you mentioned, I like the Callahan bridge. That's the one I liked. I mean, I like the Duesenberg bridge as well, but for the guitar you're talking about, if you're out of the three you mentioned, I would go with the Callahan. So there you go. That's just my suggestion, but I'm sure others will put comments too based on their experiences. James said, since we're all going to die when the sun explodes, this question is just, I don't know where it's going to go, but it's already starting crazy. Okay, here we go. James, I'm with you. Since we're all going to die when the sun explodes, should I go ahead and spend the money on a month of fret working classes at Roberto Venn? Yes, absolutely. You won't regret that. That's money well spent. Yes. And I don't even think we have to worry about the sun exploding. If the sun doesn't explode, you should do it. That's great. I didn't know they did that. They had a fret working class for a month. Yeah, you should do that. Absolutely. And then James, if you're in town when you do that, and we can get masks, and I'll go. I told you guys, anytime stuff like that, maybe we can go have a coffee or something. We'll hang out, talk guitars, 6 feet apart with a mask on, because we're responsible. Greg just did a sticker, a super sticker, and it's like a blue bird drinking a giant cup of coffee, and I may have coffee after this. Okay. All right, Todd, the last question. It's the hardest one because I don't know what's going with this. It says, I think it's Genelix Golden Lion Gold Pin tubes the best? ? And this is going to be tough because here's why. It says, and what's the best 12BH7 tube? Phil thinks, I'm fortunate, Todd. I am the last guy to talk about tubes. I wanted to be versed in tubes. I tried. I did. I've tried it like at least 2 or 3 times now. I've bought all kinds of tubes and messed with them and tried to be the tube connoisseur person. And what ultimately ended up happening was the nuances in tubes are so subtle. They're so little that I just didn't feel like I was getting joy out of spending the money buying tubes and trying differences. I was like, to me, if I have to try too hard to hear a 1% difference, and it's not fun for me to do, because see, messing with the guitar is fun with me. Messing with an amp is not fun for me, right? So to answer your question, I don't know. This is how horrible it is. Ready? All my amps have either what they came with or JJs. And I can't even tell you because I think JJs are great. I just literally have a bunch of friends that are amp builders, designers, or own amp companies, and I would just ask them generically, like, hey, what's the best tube? And they'd be like, JJs. I'd hear it so much that JJs were just good. And so I use JJs. And they're cheap. So cheap and good, and I'm happy. And I tried, like I said, I was talking to a friend this week who's an amp builder, and he was talking about old Mullards, and all these old tubes, and GE, vintage, GE, and new old stocks. And I was there with him for 5 seconds, and then I started tuning out. I started thinking, like, I'm just going to put JJs in it. That's what I thought. But I love that he knew. So again, I'm sorry I don't have a great answer for you. But it's not that I don't think that stuff matters. It's just, again, you can only pick, you know what I mean? Like, the saying, you can only have so many masters, right? Right? Serve so many masters, so to speak, is the saying. You can only do so many things. I can only focus on so many things. And so tubes are just a little bit too far into the amp world for me to get focused on right now. I'm still into the how many things can I do to a guitar first. All right. On that note, I'm going to call it. If I did miss a super chat, I will definitely find it and scoop it when I index this for next week. I want to thank you guys. It's 2.5 hours. So again, having a voice right now is just a miracle at this point. By the way, whoever told me to drink water before the show, hydrate before the show and not during the show. I apologize that I don't remember your sign on for that, but I want to say thank you so much because I felt a big difference today, and I think you guys could too. I did drink water, but I drank less water than I normally do. I'm only halfway through the cup where I normally am about almost done, and sometimes I run out. So obviously, what a great advice. Thank you and other advices too. Somebody talking about lozenges stuff. I'm actually ordered some of the stuff you guys talked about, but man, and Floopity Doo said, gotta pee, huh? That's what I was worried about. So no issues there, but man, thank you. Hydrating. So really good lesson to learn. This is, again, that's know your gear. That's the idea, right? It's obviously I didn't need more water. I didn't need better water. I just needed to know when to drink the water. And somebody taught me that. And I want to thank him for that. Because again, that made sense. Drink the water. They even said drink 24 hours before. I was actually hydrating yesterday too. So again, I will do that from go on. So now you know if you're going to have to talk for 2.5 hours, you don't hydrate while you're doing it. You hydrate before. Very good answer. Thank you on that note. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Have a great weekend. Till next week, I'll just leave you with know your gear as soon as I find the screen. And I will buy the Behringer pedals and we will do the Behringer rig. And as soon as those get delivered from Sweetwater. All right. Thanks, guys.